Part 75. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Xueshi. Chapter 746. This world is so lively. Behind the battlefield. The white man with a beard and a suit felt the cruelty and shock brought by the battlefield and sighed. If I hadn't seen it with my own eyes, I wouldn't have believed it. At the end of science is theology. The man smiled and said to Cecilia, who was wearing a cloak behind him, although I know very well that you summoned us as heroic spirits to this magical era in order to complete your goal. But for scientists, no treasure can be more precious than sight. I have to thank you, my master. Cecilia was silent. The man seems to be a talker. Also a scientist. After he fired a shot into the sky above Uruk City, he made no other moves. After the other heroic spirits left one by one, he took advantage of his free time to chat with Cecilia. According to the knowledge that heroic soul instilled in me, your world actually doesn't have the United States. What a magical parallel world. Interesting, interesting, so interesting. If Columbus had not succeeded in bringing about invasion and technological revolution when he set foot on the American continent in the 15th century, then it would indeed be possible for the Native American culture to breed a completely different civilization. A completely different civilization. Key variables can lead to completely different results from the formula. The world is really colorful. I died too early. What a pity, what a pity, what a pity. Although he said this, the man's tone did not mean pity at all. Instead, he became more and more excited as he spoke. The real mystery of knowledge lies in the unknown and the infinite. Whether it is theology, science, or other mysterious forces, all kinds of unknowns are the driving force that attracts us to tirelessly explore the truth. You should be able to understand, right? Dear Master Magician. Cecilia finally couldn't bear it anymore. She replied, Nikola Tesla, please remember your mission. Mission, I understand. Nikola Tesla smiled and made an okay gesture to Cecilia, and said with a smile, you and I both know that the fight with the hostile heroic spirit is a meaningless battle. A suspenseful and inhumane war. The real beginning of the war should be when we completely eliminate the opponent's heroic spirits, and the remaining us will fight under the forcible command of your command spell. So, in the end we will all die. Under the cloak, Cecilia's expression showed a moment of astonishment. Is it strange how I know this? Nikola Tesla smiled, stretched out his fingers, tapped his temples twice, and said, this is not the knowledge given to me by the heroic spirit, but, when all the clues were laid out, by simple deduction, this was the only possible answer. Cecilia looked at each other in surprise. Nikola Tesla's face became a little more proud. In Cecilia's surprised eyes, he continued, the purpose of the Holy Grail War is to create a Holy Grail that is enough to reach the source. But this mature ritual, obviously this is not the first time. So, why did the previous ritual fail? Someone in your world must have finally understood that this kind of ritual cannot create a Holy Grail that can truly reach the source. Having said this, Nicholas shook his head, I didn't realize until now, task, it's really the wisdom of mortals. If it were me, I would have understood this when I failed for the first time. Only by facing failure with sincerity, it is possible to obtain more profound knowledge. There is a saying that failure is the mother of success. So, how can we get the real Holy Grail? Nikola Tesla asked and answered himself, looking at the battlefield, until you trace ancient history and discover this place, you discover this mythical era hidden in reality. Although it is an illusion here, there is indeed a terrifying magic power left. But the magic power here is like scattered particles and cannot form the actual Holy Grail. Therefore, I speculate that you want to use the improved ritual to make the Holy Grail in your body can steal enough magic power from here, and when it is infinitely close to the elusive Holy Grail, it will be able to achieve resonance, thereby bringing the real Holy Grail into the real world where you are. Although the person who came up with this method may have spent many years to understand this. But I have to say that his wisdom has surpassed ordinary people and reached a level that can make me, Nikola Tesla, in awe. That's it. I'm always in awe of the erudition. Cecilia was completely shocked. She had never said anything about the Holy Grail to this heroic spirit from a strange time and space. He didn't even know that the second Holy Grail container was within his body. However, through the basic knowledge instilled by the heroic soul seed, and through his own observation, reasoning, and thinking, the other party easily came up with the difficult problem that has troubled countless magicians for hundreds of years. This man's wisdom is so terrifying. He is obviously not a person in the world. He obviously knows nothing about magic. But he figured it out? This is impossible. Although she was shouting in her heart, Cecilia had to admit that Nikola Tesla's long and chatty speech was infinitely close to the truth. Do not know why. Cecilia could obviously say nothing. Whether it is acquiesce or not. But she lowered her head, and after a moment of silence, she couldn't help but say, the modern Holy Grail is contaminated by the evils of mankind in this world, and it is theoretically impossible to create it. So, did you think of bringing the pure and pollution-free Holy Grail back in this special way? Haha, I have to say, this is a flash of inspiration, but it is enough to be called genius idea. No matter how much time it took and how many failures it took to come up with, it can't hide the brilliance of this ingenious idea. Nikola Tesla gives a thumbs up and likes this. However, the Holy Grail is filled with the evil of mankind in this world. I personally think that maybe this is the true form of the Holy Grail. Nikola Tesla patted the dust on his body and smiled slightly. It seems that the happy chat time is over. The free charges dispersed in the air oscillated. It seems that we have a visitor coming to visit us. For a moment, Cecilia's pupils shrank suddenly. When Nikola Tesla said these words, she didn't hesitate at all, and she didn't even have the desire to explore the identity of the guest. The magic mark under the cloak flashed with light, and she activated the displacement magic, and in the blink of an eye, it moved to the preset replacement point and disappeared in place. A puff of smoke appeared silently behind Nikola Tesla. One hand held a dagger and stabbed Nikola Tesla in the neck. Particle state. Level B. Type Noble Phantasm against a single target, self. Effective range 1. Maximum catch 1. This is the core skill that Governor Ball really relies on for his survival. By turning her body into a particle state, she can enter anywhere. But this ability is like magic. The essence of the skill must not be exposed, otherwise it will be worthless. She is able to divide her body into infinitesimal particles, and these countless particles equally divide her attributes. It can be said that every particle is a part of her body, but the pure particle state has no lethality. At least, not until now. Governor Ball has not yet developed a way to use particles to cause damage. There is an interval of 10 seconds each time between entity and particle state. At least during these 10 seconds, Governor Ball is unable to convert from particle state to entity, or from entity to particle state again. Moreover, during the transformation, she can also leave part of her body behind and lurk in the opponent's body in the form of particles. In fact, the original rating of this skill was not high. It's just an ordinary B-level skill. And it has no actual combat effect. But this skill allowed her to survive repeated cruel trials. When he broke through the extraordinary, Governor Ball unlocked the skill and unlocked more tricks. This is why Governor Ball likes to use smoke to hide her abilities, because once the weakness of this ability is exposed, it will become her Achilles heel. That's why Governor Ball was so angry and reacted that way when Yilin revealed the nature of her tracking ability. While activating the particle state /. Governor Ball was not stingy and activated another noble phantasm, which was the ability to enchant weapons. The Old Man in the Mist. Level B. Type versus Senses Noble Phantasm. Effective range 112. Maximum capture 099 people. Ball's cold voice came from the smoke. Visual stripping. It was pitch black before Nikola Tesla's eyes and he could no longer see anything. From the moment he inhaled the smoke, Nikola Tesla's vision was stripped away. Particle state and Old Man in the Mist, these two abilities, no, it should be said that these two treasures are what allowed Governor Ball to surpass Yilin, who was good at stealth, in stealth assassination. Adapted to the essence of the assassin class. She is a real assassin. Die. Everything's ready. Normally, caster who is deprived of his eyesight and is approached by assassin can only end up in death. At the same time. Ground. Yilin appeared from the shadow with an expressionless face. Following me like a shadow. Shadow kill. Shadow breaking blow. When Ball took action, Yilin had already launched a skilled combo, lurked at Nikola Tesla's feet, and suddenly rose up. He held the gun in both hands, and the destructive revolver in his right hand had already been loaded with a supercharged bullet with 20 layers of power in the gun chamber. The surging magic power vibrated in the barrel of the gun. Yilin pressed her index finger hard on the trigger. Pain. No matter if it works or not. It doesn't matter whether the opponent's willpower is high or not. Control skills should be improved. The essence of this combo is to surprise, control until death, take away with one shot, and run away after the attack. This was Yilin's most common combo routine when she still used knives as her main means of attack. Yilin and Bohr, on the road, for the first time, spoke from the bottom of their hearts about the abilities they could use in order to achieve the common goal of survival. In the end, Yilin formulated the skill combination with the highest success rate to kill the most threatening caster-magician class with one shot. According to Yilin's repeated calculations in his mind, unless the other party possesses a passive protective treasure, or simply plays a rogue invincible skill, if the two apostles who are good at assassination attack at the same time, there is a 90% chance of success. With such a high rate, Black's caster can be killed successfully. As expected, Nikola Tesla was confused. Firstly, he was deprived of vision, and secondly, he was hit by Yilin's disaster haunting. Yilin was not sure what kind of negative effects it triggered. But anyway, when Yilin's gun emerged from the shadows and Ball stabbed Nikola Tesla in the neck, the other person's eyes were empty and confused, and he froze in place without any resistance. Fortunately, nothing like charm was triggered, otherwise the opponent would be twisting and turning on the spot, making it difficult for Yilin to aim. Under this level of siege, unless the opponent's strength far exceeds that of the two of them, it is impossible to escape. But why is the success rate of Yilin's speculation only 90%? Because the remaining 10% is a variable. Black assassin. Black, the assassin. This is the biggest variable. At this moment, in this tiny moment, there is less than a gap in the second. The shadow behind Yilin showed strange fluctuations. His shadow kept twisting. An assassin with slender limbs appeared silently from behind Yilin. It has no sound, no breathing, no heartbeat. It seemed like a real, pure shadow. Master. Behind your back. In the air. The three mother spirits, Nai Hongxiu, Bai Xiaoi, and Gaia Qinmei, who had already arranged their arrangements, stared at Empress Yilinja from all angles, 360 degrees in all directions. Yilin noticed it when he poked Gu Tianqing from Black Assassin. This Black Assassin, like other ordinary assassins, likes to target the Chrysanthemum Queen. When Black Assassin appeared, Bai Xiaoi immediately gave a reminder. As expected, you still chose me to attack. When the trigger is about to be pulled, Yilin turned the gun and suddenly pressed the bullet that was about to be discharged into his lower abdomen. Behind him, the shadow stretched out a knife as before. This knife stabbed the red hair to death, stabbed to death Gu Tianqing's mother spirit. And this knife, now, stabbed into Yilin's back. Boom. Yilin fired. Towards my belly. In an instant, the spiral bullet penetrated Yilin's body and hit the shadow behind him. Black Assassin was shot. Evil Thoughts space. Yilin couldn't confirm whether this shot could kill the other party. He endured the pain and at the same time activated the space of evil thoughts. The subspace unfolds, the dark earth, and rolling black clouds. Yilin comes again to this world of boundless darkness. The shadow succeeded in the attack, escaped again, merged into the darkness, and disappeared. The bloody hole in Yilin's abdomen, which was as thick as an arm, was healing at a speed visible to the naked eye. Rincon. The little cotton-padded jacket Gayajiamimi appeared, covering Yilin's wound with tears in her eyes, extremely worried. Yilin, however, pressed Xiaomei down without saying a word. Hide. Its knife can kill spirits. Don't think that you are invincible if you can't die. Rincon, are you okay? In a hurry, Gayajiamimi asked anxiously, but when she thought about the opponent's ability to kill even spirits, she was so frightened that she hid. Don't let the terrible assassin find her. Call. Until the wound heals. Yilin took a long breath. This breath carries the fragrance of magic. 2 dazzling cracks appeared on the dead skin on Yilin's forehead. Dark blood slowly trickled down from the cracks in the dead skin. Yilin reached out and touched her back. There's a tiny knife edge there. And the red hair dyed under this knife. But Yilin is fine. The mask of laughter, the body of 10 deaths. Grade A. Type Noble Phantasm against a single target, self. Effective range 1. Maximum catch 1 person. Yilin activated the Noble Phantasm without hesitation before taking action. Although the Noble Phantasm has a cooling time, it only has 1 life. Even if he let it go in vain, Yilin would not feel it was a pity. He admitted that he was gambling, but he was right. Yilin stood in mid-air. From this angle, no shadow would fall around him. Very safe. Moving his hands and feet, Yilin repeatedly confirmed that there were no sequelae after he was stabbed. Then he looked at the empty and desolate mental landscape and said with a smile. Don't try, you can't get out. I've got you, assassin. After Yilin finished speaking, no one in the subspace responded. But after 10 seconds, a light black shadow stood up unsteadily on the ground dozens of meters away. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Shueshi. Chapter 747. In the space of evil thoughts. Silent black clouds are rolling. The black objects on the ground, between solid and liquid, frame everything in front of you. The black shadows seem to be part of this world. Yilin actually already figured out the origin of the other party. Assassin. The shadow's face had no features. Even the proportions of the body's limbs present an extremely uncoordinated and weird feeling. Twisted, weird, mysterious, this is assassin. Yes. This black assassin who followed the call of another holy grail and came out of the throne of heroes is not a specific person in a certain period of history, a certain story, or a certain legend. Even, it is not a person. First of all, in order to understand this, we must first truly understand what an assassin is. A competent assassin is the one who makes people die inexplicably and in confusion. Killing people with just a flick of the hand and leaving no name for thousands of miles is what an assassin should have. No one will know who the real assassin is, or even whether the assassin is male, female, old, or young. Historically, all unconventional deaths and all fears have been attributed to a mysterious assassin. To put it bluntly, it's very simple. This assassin who came out of the throne of heroes is exactly the concept of assassin itself. It is precisely because of this that the opponent's sword should be some kind of noble phantasm, a noble phantasm with the concept of death attached to it. Once stabbed, a life will definitely be taken away. After thinking about this, Yilin realized. At the same time, Yilin also knew how to deal with this kind of pure assassin. Even if the assassin has no face or identity, in the concept of all those killed, the assassin must first be a person. No matter how superb its stealth skills are, in the final analysis, the fear it has spread throughout history is still inseparable from the concept of human. Heroic spirits are the embodiment of legends, concepts, and fantasies. It will definitely return to its physical form at the moment of killing, otherwise it would be impossible to stab it out with this knife. When Yulin formulated the plan to capture the assassin, he formulated several contingency plans based on different possibilities. 1. The assassin appears. 2. The assassin does not appear. It would be easier to deal with if he didn't show up, and the black caster would be gone immediately. But what happened? Here comes the problem. Who does it want to kill? Is it Yulin or Baal? Yulin rarely cheated her teammates this time. He truthfully informed Baal of this possibility. Baal expressed his understanding, gritted his teeth, and agreed to the plan. Eventually, the assassin appears and chooses to stab Yulin. The most ideal result is that when the opponent stabs herself, Yulin uses Laughing Mask 10 Death Body to be immune to the effect of 10 fatal injuries in a short period of time. Yulin takes the damage and kills both sides in a lose-lose way. Black Assassin was taken away with one shot. Then, he turned around and killed a carbine, killing the black caster as well. This is the ideal ending. In this way, the opponent instantly destroyed 2 heroic spirits, and the battle was fruitful. This wave was stable. However, the assassin on the opposite side was not dead, so Yulin could only expand the subspace at the same time, dragging the black assassin into the subspace with the knife still in his body and not having time to change from entity to illusion. He really didn't believe that the opponent's knife could pierce through the subspace like Miriam's curry stick. If Yulin is really that awesome, there is nothing he can do about it, just lie down and let him be killed. This is unsolvable. Fortunately, Mr. Assassin is not at a point where there is no solution. It stayed in place, tilting its head without facial features, as if it was puzzled that Yulin was still floating in the air. There were no shadows around Yulin. This is his subspace, and he has the final say in everything. Click. Accompanied by the crisp sound of loading, Yulin began to shoot at the shadows on the ground indiscriminately from the air. Chug tug tug. Duan's two-handed revolver, with the strong support of the flow of magic power every breath, just acted like a machine gun for Yulin. Bullets passed through the body of Black Assassin one after another, but the opponent remained unmoved and did not seem to be harmed at all. The highest level of breath masking. An attack that is sure to kill once it hits. Switching between reality and reality. Yulin roughly guessed the opponent's ability. Assassins are not difficult to deal with once they are exposed and the veil of mystery is removed. The shadow swayed slightly, sank into the ground, and disappeared from Yulin's eyes. So far, Yulin's Laughing Mask 10 death body still has 8 minutes left. There are still 8 immune deaths left. That knife stabbed Yulin to death twice and cost Yulin 2 lives. Very scary. Yulin reluctantly put away the death revolver. Fall back to the ground. Victory or defeat only occurs in a moment. The opponent will only transform into a physical entity when he stabs him to death. Yulin has 8 more chances. I've never been so grateful to have been so lucky. Yulin wore a hanging ring on her hand, with a helpless smile on her face. Grasp of annihilation. Outside the subspace, Yulin and Black Assassin disappeared from the place. This was an expected change. Baal's assassination operation did not hesitate or change due to Yulin's assassination. She is also a professional assassin. Being able to stand out among the 7 and adapt to the assassin class shows that her assassination ability has been recognized by the Holy Grail. Very stable. That shadow was killing Yulin. To be honest, Boar felt lucky. This is a 50-50 chance. But the other party's luck doesn't seem to be very good. Even God did not favor that man. It's over. Bohr's knife pierced Nikola Tesla's neck. But suddenly, there was a slight change in Bohl's cold expression. The tip of her knife was clearly aimed at the other person's neck. She is very skilled in this posture. This knife will cut the opponent's carotid artery and trachea together. She even had time to cut off the opponent's head one more time and take it away as a souvenir. But unfortunately, when her knife barely touched the opponent's body surface, she could no longer make an inch forward. Can't move. Just like the knife itself, it doesn't want to move. No matter how hard she tried, she couldn't get it in. There's something wrong with the knife. Bohl's heart moved, his fingers tightened and then relaxed, and he let go. The knife that no one had grasped was suspended in mid-air. Bohl didn't hesitate. After discarding his weapon, he twisted his fingers towards the opponent's neck. Crack. The moment Bohl's fingers came into contact with Nikola Tesla's skin, dazzling electric sparks suddenly burst out between his fingertips and the other person's skin. Boom. Bohl's whole body was numb, his hair stood on end, he groaned and flew backwards. She was shocked. This man has electricity in him. The governor of Bohr rolled on the ground and stood up numbly. But while standing up, Bohl's feet weakened and he almost fell back. She was electrocuted. Bohl looked at each other in horror. She has gone through countless trials. In the cruel trials again and again, she survived in various ways. Step by step, she reached her current position. She took control of a country. The future is promising. In each trial, Bohr's sense of crisis was different from ordinary people. Otherwise, she would never have survived until now. She deeply understands the truth that the more advanced the skills, the higher the attributes, and the more props, the longer one can live. The secret that truly allows an apostle to live a long life is vision. Go up when you need to, run when you need to run, this is the secret of longevity. This man is unbeatable. For a moment, a thought flashed through Bohl's mind. She was originally an assassin, but she was at a huge disadvantage when she faced off against a magician. What's more, she missed a hit and failed to hit the target, so she had no reason to stay here. Walk. After a moment, Bohl had a decision in his mind. She decided not to wait until Uren came out. Originally, there was no friendship between the two of them. It is all maintained by the weak teammate relationship. She had no reason to risk her life for Yilin. Moreover, Yilin and the Black Assassin have been away for so long without coming out. What if Yilin fails? What if Yilin is killed? So next, the Black Assassin who killed Yilin should deal with her. An assassin who puts his name on the bright side cannot cope with the combined attacks of two heroic spirits on Black's side at the same time. Bohl's wrist flicked, her military uniform trembled, and the pipe appeared in her hand, blowing out bursts of smoke. Bohl's figure was hidden in the smoke and disappeared in the blink of an eye. Haha, the ability to turn the body into particles is really eye-opening. Seconds after Bohl disappeared, Nikola Tesla regained his sight. Apart from his initial shock, his face now looked incredibly calm, smiling, and polite, like a knowledgeable wise man. This expression makes it hard to imagine that he had just survived a wave of assassinations. A little bit of feeling similar to fear, remaining fear and run quickly cannot be read on Nikola Tesla's face. Crack. 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 Brilliant electric sparks bloomed around Nikola Tesla. Nikola Tesla snapped his fingers and drew around him. Electric sparks formed arcs where his fingers slid. The shape of the arc quickly changed, and finally turned into ball lightning the size of 4 fists. Ball lightning surrounds Nikola Tesla, and its trajectory is like a satellite orbiting a planet. Nikola Tesla did it all in a leisurely manner. It took 10 seconds in total. Far away, in the deserted place, a cry of pain and the sound of electricity suddenly came out. The governor of Bohr was covered in smoke and was ejected in a burst of smoke. Yes. That posture, that turbulence, That tremor, it's just like a piece of soft meat that bounces round when it hits a wall. After all, Baal is a melee-type apostle, and his physical fitness cannot be compromised. Moreover, when she became a heroic spirit, she was also given the class skill Anti-Magic. Although the Anti-Magic class skill falls on Assassin, the ability evaluation is only a mere C level, which means average. But this general anti-magic power also allowed Baal to quickly recover the ability to move his limbs from the electric shock. However, when she ran away, she was bounced back by an invisible wall. She felt like she was being electrocuted again. How can this be? What kind of ability does the other party have? Tread, tread, tread. Nikola Tesla, wearing shiny leather shoes and surrounded by 4 ball lightnings, walked gracefully towards Bol, who was covered in smoke and lying on the ground. He chatted while walking, half joking and half serious. Look at this ball, is it big? Ball. Did you know that ball lightning is a rare physical phenomenon in nature? This relatively stable plasma can only be formed under extremely harsh conditions. Nikola Tesla marveled, but, this physical phenomenon, which is extremely rare in science, has been completely reproduced by human power under the power of the Holy Grail and the heroic spirit. This was a miracle that was completely unimaginable during my lifetime. Miracle. This word comes out of the mouth of a scientist, which is slightly inconsistent. Baal stood up expressionlessly. She tapped the cigarette stem. The thick smoke condensed in Baal's hand and turned into a mist-like knife, which seemed illusory and illusory. What did you do to me? Governor Baal asked coldly. Oh, are you referring to the phenomenon just now? Nikola Tesla pointed at the back of the governor of Bor with an astonished expression, a little apologetic on his face. Sorry, this can only be said to be your out of luck. Before you guys came, I set up an electrostatic charge field around me. Originally, these charges didn't have much lethality, but I was able to detect your arrival through the change in charge. Governor Baal's eyes flashed. She originally just asked and didn't expect the other party to answer honestly. Unexpectedly, this black caster turned out to be a talkative person and exposed his abilities. So Bor listened in silence, being a good listener. Nikola Tesla explained, but when you just turned into a particle state, every part of your body and every particle reacted with the surrounding electrostatic charges. Believe me, the complex formulas in it, even now, I cannot calculate how the charges in your body cancel out the positive and negative charges. But the final result is that a magnetic field is generated in your body, which creates a strong repulsive reaction with the surrounding electrostatic field. Baal was shocked. But after the shock, she quickly accepted this cruel reality. The particle state she relies on for survival has put her in a situation with no way out. She is trapped in this cage called magnetic field. Just because she has electricity in her body, like poles repel each other, because of this ridiculous scientific principle. So, I'm really sorry. After Nikola Tesla finished explaining, he bowed politely to Bol and expressed his apology. With a flick of his finger, 4 ball lightning shot quickly towards Bol. As Nikola Tesla said, Bor was charged with electricity, and the 4 ball lightning were attracted by the magnetic field on Bor's body. There was no need to deliberately aim, and the 4 ball lightning floated straight towards Bor. No matter how Baal changed his position, the 4 ball lightnings kept getting closer and closer. Cold sweat broke out on Baal's forehead. She gritted her teeth and stopped holding back her hands. On the back of her hand, the 3 command spells given by Gilgamesh disappeared one after another, turning into huge magic power and pouring into Baal's body. At that moment, Governor Baal felt the uncomfortable feeling of being filled and stretched, making her want to burp. After all, the assassin class is not a class that specializes in magic, and Baal herself is not a magician. As a container, she is too narrow-minded. She almost couldn't contain the burst of magic power caused by 3 consecutive command spells. However, Baal gritted his teeth and persisted. Bol's figure is divided into 2 parts, 4 parts from 2 parts, 8 parts from 4 parts, and 16 parts from 8 parts. Overlapping clones, with hazy mist on their bodies, expressionless faces, holding knives, were killing Nikola Tesla. Nikola Tesla seemed not to have expected that Baal had such a hidden agenda, and quickly backed away, trying to run away. Want to leave? Baal sneered and revealed her biggest trump card in this holy grail war. Boundless space. Grade A+. Type versus noble phantasm of perception. Effective range 19. Maximum catch 10 people. The Boundless Sky. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Infinity Throne. Author, by Xueshi. Chapter 748. What does human perception include? The 5 senses refer to human sight, touch, smell, hearing, and intelligence. So, what does it feel like to be deprived of your 5 senses? People who have not experienced it personally will not know this terrible feeling. Some people may think being deprived of the 5 senses is nothing more than being in a dark space, losing the perception of the outside world, and feeling helpless. But in fact it's not. The real deprivation of the ability of the 5 senses is to lose even thinking, self, existence, and even the thinking ability to experience this feeling. A person has completely turned into a walking zombie. Is alive. But he is also dead. Plop. Nikola Tesla suddenly fell to his knees. His radiant eyes lost focus and became a puppet. One by one, Baal clones, holding knives, stabbed Nikola Tesla. Since one knife can't kill him, then use 2, 4, or 8. A sword begets a sword, a wave begets a wave, and there will be endless descendants. Governor Baal, after burning 3 command spells, received the terrifying magic blessing and launched his ultimate move. But those 4 Baal lightnings, even if they lost the control of their master, were still attracted by the magnetic field on Governor Baal's body, and their speed did not slow down at all, and they smashed towards Governor Baal's trembling body. At this moment, it's a matter of superiority and life and death. In front of the city walls of Uruk. Put out, humble light. The moment the shield shattered, Gilgamesh's anger exploded. He didn't want to waste his precious magic power on these miscellaneous fish. The trash fish should be dealt with by the trash fish. Unexpectedly, this woman actually broke one of his precious collections. So, Gilgamesh was angry. Hippolyta's spears, shot after shot. With each shot, she focused on one point and finally shattered the shield. But she didn't have time to rejoice yet. In front of Gilgamesh, shields emerged from the king's treasure one after another. Hippolyta was stunned. Each shield has a different shape and style, as if it comes from different eras and is made by different craftsmen. But the only thing that is the same is that there are terrible fluctuations on each shield, enough to make the divine blood in Hippolyta feel the trembling fluctuations. Damn it! How come you have so many treasures? Hippolyta asked loudly after being stunned. Gilgamesh had no intention of answering Hippolyta's question. In fact, when he took action, Hippolyta, who was covered in animal skins under the city wall, was no different from a dead person in his eyes. Enkidu. With the king's call. Enkidu appeared from behind Gilgamesh. He looked at Hippolyta on the ground and sighed. Crash dash. Enkidu turned into golden chains, and the sharp blades at the front of the chains stabbed out from Hippolyta's side at 360 degrees without any blind angle. In just an instant, hundreds of chains pierced Hippolyta's chest, collarbones, limbs, and abdomen, stringing her into a bloody human being. Hippolyta screamed, and after the scream, Hippolyta's eyes shot out with real ferocity. On her right upper arm, an armband that seemed to have a certain totem engraved on it suddenly lit up with a bright light. The shadow of a bearded giant appeared behind Hippolyta. Hippolyta activated her noble phantasm. The military belt of the god of war. Grade A. Type anti-human anti-military noble phantasm. Range 199. Maximum capture 1999 people. The moment Hippolyta activated her noble phantasm, from the crack in the sky, a bloody light rushed down. Fell on Hippolyta. Hippolyta seemed to have eaten the blood light. Within a few seconds, Hippolyta's size increased dramatically at a speed visible to the naked eye. Pa, pa, pa. Hippolyta, who was transformed into a hedgehog by the lock of heaven, heard a crisp explosion from her body. At this moment, amazing changes were taking place in her body. In ancient Greek myths and legends, Hippolyta is a descendant of Ares, the god of war. As we all know, the strength of the gods in Greek mythology cannot be tested, but their ethical relationships are quite troublesome. Hippolyta has more than just the blood of Ares, the god of war, in her body. She even has the blood of one, two, or even multiple different gods in her body. The stories and intersections in it are so intense that one dares not to imagine, and they have long been buried in the long river of history. But it is undeniable that at this moment, the divinity coming from Hippolyta was so strong that even Gilgamesh had to face it. The military belt of the god of war is a noble phantasm that was materialized and even deified under such a background and with the power of the Holy Grail. This noble phantasm can greatly increase Hippolyta's divinity, physical strength, dexterity, magic power, and durability during the period of time it is activated. In short, this is a noble phantasm that has no weaknesses, is simple and crude, and has all attributes greatly improved. Actually, fortunately, Hippolyta was summoned with the class of archer, a bow knight. If she is adapted to rider, Hippolyta, as the queen of the Amazon tribe, can even be strengthened to bring about the age of gods together with her female warriors who are good at fighting. So, after using this terrifying enhancement type treasure war god's belt, what appears in front of Gilgamesh is not a female war goddess, but a group of female war gods. Things have come to this, there are no ifs, and no beginnings. Now, as the Knight of the Bow, Hippolyta transformed from an Amazon queen full of wild charm into a strong muscular female goddess of war after using the precious weapon war god's belt. The muscles on her body were as solid as a rock, and the blood vessels bulged on the surface of her body, like vines winding on the surface of the rock. Her skin also changed from dark to red, and she looked like an angry hill giant, ferocious and terrifying. Madness. On the city wall, facing Hippolyta who had no morals and used her father's power, Gilgamesh remained unmoved at all. He didn't even have the slightest surprise on his face. He said indifferently, "With your ignorance go to hell." Impossible. Hippolyta, whose divinity, strength, durability, dexterity, and magic power all increased dramatically, used the power of Ares to prepare to break the damned chains. But what shocked Hippolyta was that the layers of chains that bound her became tighter, thicker, and stronger as she struggled. The harder she pushed, the tighter the chains became. Hippolyta couldn't break free. Not to mention breaking free, the golden chains were deeply embedded in Hippolyta's hard muscles. These muscles were invulnerable. Bright red blood flowed down the end of the chain, and within a moment, Hippolyta's body was dyed red. Impossible. 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 Hippolyta, carrying the weight of the chain, moved towards the wall of Uruk little by little, step by step. Every step she took, the lock of heaven took away a lump of blood and scraped away a piece of flesh. As she struggled, there was no intact part of the surface of her body. She looked extremely miserable, completely lacking the strength that a demigod should have. When Hippolyta was struggling in the binding play of Lock of Heaven, behind the battlefield, the edge of Tiangong continent, after Cecilia used displacement magic to escape from the scene, she stayed where she was, feeling the changes on the battlefield based on the changes in the magical power of the heroic spirit. At this time, Cecilia, who was silent, suddenly opened her eyes and said to herself, Hippolyta's vitality is declining rapidly, and she also used the most powerful noble phantasm. Who is it? Who forced Hippolyta to this point? At this point? After all, she has the blood of a god and her divinity is extremely high. Unless she encounters an unconventional anti-god noble phantasm, otherwise. While talking, Cecilia rolled up her sleeves and found the command seal corresponding to Hippolyta. The battlefield was turbulent, but the place where Cecilia was eerily quiet. She hesitated for a moment and decided to see who had driven Hippolyta to this point. Cecilia chanted an obscure spell in her mouth, and a command spell disappeared from her arm. The next moment, after using a command spell, she established a unilateral visual connection with Hippolyta, who was far away in front of the city wall of Uruk. To put it simply, Thesia shared Hippolyta's vision and was able to steal Hippolyta's eyes and see everything the heroic spirit faced. With her eyes closed, Cecilia saw an angry man in her sight. It's the ancient king of Uruk. How come? How could he take action? Here is a legendary era that has been lost in history, and everything follows the trajectory of history. She knew very well that even if they intervened in this age of gods and played tricks, they would not be able to significantly change the direction of history. They can participate in the war as heroic spirits, but the real enemy they face is still the heroic spirits themselves. According to Cecilia's initial speculation, they followed ancient books, historical relics, and many signs to deduce what happened in this age of gods. In order to fight against the gods, the wise king used the Holy Grail to summon 7 servants. The 7 servants eventually died tragically in the age of gods and returned to the seat of heroes. No one was spared. In other words, the death of the 7 heroic spirits was destined. This is established history. The virtuous king of Uruk, Gilgamesh, even sealed his most powerful noble phantasm in order to preserve his magic power to deal with the end. Generally speaking, he would not do it. How did Hippolyta get into trouble with the wise king? After a brief moment of surprise and confusion, under the cloak, Cecilia von Einsborn's expression darkened. She broke a command seal again. The second Hippolyta's command spell turned into a bloody glow and swept into the sky, heading towards the Uruk city wall. The light of the command spell spans thousands of miles. Arrive at the battlefield. In front of the city wall of Uruk, Hippolyta, who had first received a wave of father's power, gradually became sluggish. But suddenly, the command spell has come. Hippolyta was stunned. She felt the surging magic power in her body. After a moment, Hippolyta seemed to become a crazy Valkyrie, with her hair floating up. Become my wife? The man that I, Hippolyta, like. Hippolyta does it again. She takes great strides forward. The well-developed pectoralis major muscles are trembling, and the hard latissimus dorsi muscles are roaring. The trembling of muscles is like a high-pitched war song. The war song begins. She is the attack of the Amazon's hybrid queen, Hippolyta. Hippolyta stretched out her right hand, and a dazzling red light quickly condensed on her right hand. The red light gathered and gradually formed the shape of a spear. But this one is no ordinary spear. In the air, strong magic swept through. With Hippolyta as the center, a magic vortex like a vacuum appeared here. Inside the city, randomly placed weapons, corpses that had not yet been buried, residence cloth, and leftover food scraps were all swept up into the air by the sudden whirlpool of magic power, and were torn to pieces by the invisible magic power, above Hippolyta's head. Rolled into a black hurricane visible to the naked eye. At this moment, a revolving door appeared before Hippolyta's eyes. Run away from the lantern. Run away from the lantern. Run away from the lantern. It turns out that when people's potential explodes, they can recall their entire lives in a very short period of time. It turned out to be true. Hippolyta has never met her father. After she was born, she was thrown at the door of a primitive tribe. She was adopted as an abandoned baby. As she grew up, Hippolyta showed amazing potential. In tribal wars, she was invincible and invincible. On her 18th birthday, for the first time in her life, she learned who her father was. When she woke up, Hippolyta found an extra gift beside her pillow. It was an armband engraved with the totem of the god of war. There was a note left next to the armband. Given by your father, Ares. She suddenly realized that she was the daughter of Ares, the god of war. Legend has it that the gods left countless children in the world. This legend turns out to be true. After getting the armband, Hippolyta became even more awesome as if blessed by a god. She finally became the king of the Amazons. But as time went by, she wanted to know more and more what a father's love felt like. Everyone else has a father, but she doesn't. She began to marry a wife crazily, and shouted daddy like a knight during daily intercourse. But the more this happens, the more Hippolyta longs for her father's love. Finally, Hippolyta died with regret. Until she was summoned to this era as a heroic spirit. After stepping out of the heroic spirit seat, she gained knowledge about heroic spirits, and at the same time, she also completely understood one thing. It turns out, on the night when she turned 18, her father left not only gifts but also blessings. Blessings from the god of war. The spear in the sky is the projection of the spear of Ares. She, Hippolyta, in this life and this life, whether before or after life, whether she is a heroic spirit or a human, with her Hippolyta everyone has an opportunity to project the spear of Ares into the real world. This is the strength given by her father. This is the greatest gift given by her father to the humble girl. The spear has been condensed. A giant war spear hundreds of meters long fell from the sky. The huge city of Uruk was shaking under the spear, and pieces of rubble collapsed from the city walls. Hippolyta, who was bound by chains, opened her eyes and burst into tears. It turns out that this is father's love, my distant father. Humble love bestowed upon me. Grade A+. Type versus Fortress Noble Phantasm. Range 1500. Maximum capture 1 fortress. This is the fatherly love that Hippolyta has always longed for but could not reach. Projection of the spear of Ares. Fall. Boom. Powerful vibrations swept through the entire Tiangong continent. Everyone on the battlefield, every soldier, couldn't help but stop killing at this moment and look in the direction where the shock came from. I saw the shadow of a bloody spear falling from the sky and blasting towards the wall of Uruk. The intense light drowned everything. Only the violent fluctuations in front of the city wall of Uruk did not affect the heroic spirits. The heroic spirits seemed to be isolated from the world, only focusing on the heroic battle in front of them. At the same time as the vibration occurs. 1 kilometer outside the city. Justice Kotomine is confronting the girl who took out his magic eye. Careless. Because of his carelessness, he lost his magic eye. Kotomine lost a lot of blood and his face turned pale. There was a frightening hole left in his left eye, and blood kept pouring out of the eye socket. Opposite him, the girl held a flip phone in her left hand, with a special mobile phone string strung on it. What is special? The special thing is that at the end of the cell phone string is Kotomine's bloody eyeball. The girl's right hand was holding a bloody fire axe tightly. Hey, my name is Yunotsuma, can I know your name? The girl's face was flushed, her slightly opened cherry mouth gasped out white mist, and she asked shyly. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Shueshi. Chapter 749. At the same time, Yulin was wandering in the Tower of War server and Europe. Hating City is far away in the east of the mainland. Great Engineer Tower. The 199th floor. Li Kai's office. He was leaning on the sofa, with the coffee table in front of him, steam rising, and the aroma of tea filling the room. I didn't expect that the old guy would have such a top-quality product hidden in his warehouse, tisk tisk tisk. While cleaning up hidden crimes in Hating City, Li Kai accidentally discovered that an official who was in charge of the transportation department and was about to retire disappeared and could no longer be contacted. After a little research, people who are close friends of his claimed that his name was offline. Dead, for real. So Li Kai followed the usual practice and confiscated the unowned materials and kept them in a centralized manner as strategic reserves. But what did he think? He found several boxes of the best Wuishan de Hongbao. Li Kai's Hung was sipping tea happily, and Mrs. Li's wife came in. Husband, the results of the latest door trial are out. Ever since he learned that the Snow Mountain station managed by Yilin used the allocation of teams model to conduct trials and the survival rate was greatly improved, Li Kai also decisively adopted this valuable experience. How is the result? Mrs. Li's face was red and she smiled slightly. She took the initiative to walk behind Li Kai and massage his shoulders. Squeezing and squeezing, Li Kai couldn't help but moan. Feeling offended, his squinted eyes opened a few times in relief. Very good. The survival rate of core members has reached 98%. However, the survival rate of peripheral members is not satisfactory, only 84%. Of course, most of them have accepted the suggestions, reasonably selected the door difficulty, and based on keywords, choose the door that suits your performance for the trial, and this makes the survival rate reach an astonishing height. 98%? A flash of light flashed under Li Kai's eyelids, and he nodded secretly. This was already a survival rate that people didn't dare to hope for in the past. But there are still many brothers who died. Li Kai did not let the joy dilute the sadness caused by death. He sighed softly, I plan to erect a monument in the station. Mrs. Li heated the teapot with a flick of her hand, narrowed her eyes slightly, and shook her head. This monument of yours requires a lot of effort. She understood what Li Kai meant. My wife understands me. Li Kai was satisfied with his wife's understanding and said with a smile, the ancients said that death is like a lamp going out. But in the past, it was always possible to leave a candle and some thoughts. But now the apostle, his death has now been easily erased without leaving any traces in the world. It's really scary to think about it. Yes, Mrs. Li sighed after hearing this, no one can die. The couple's hands were tightly clasped together. Fingers intertwined. A moment of silence. A subtle atmosphere began to brew in the small room. At this time, Mrs. Li heated the teapot with her little hands and the water boiled. She made another pot for Li Kai. Her eyes fell on the steaming heat, and suddenly she seemed to remember something. She shook her head and said with a smile, husband, is there something wrong with you doing this? Is it inappropriate? When Li Kai heard this, he became anxious, his eyelids twitched, and argued, why is it inappropriate? The ancients said that a sword matches a hero. This is the best tea. Only a true tea drinker can appreciate it. Taste the tea, otherwise it will be no different from crude tea. No, Mrs. Li saw her husband talking about the tea ceremony, suddenly he seemed 50 years younger and his IQ had grown. She suppressed a smile and reminded, I am referring to the compass. Compass? Oh, compass. Li Kai suddenly realized that he had misunderstood and was a little embarrassed. He turned over his hand and took out a card, and it turned out to be the epic item Kangxin's compass that had always been by Yilin's side. The president actually trusts you so much and lends you this treasure. Borrow it. Li Kai looked like he wanted to laugh but didn't want to laugh. Did you know that when he lent me this compass before he left, he asked me for a rental fee of 300,000 yuan. Mrs. Li was speechless for a moment. She really didn't know about this, but the point she wanted to say was not here. What I want to say is, with the power of the compass, even if we can avoid the death of core members to the greatest extent, in the long run, as they gradually rely on the ability of this compass, will they lose their ability to adapt to changes and their courage to fight trials? Don't worry, I have my own sense of caution on this point. The president said that the world will undergo great changes. That person also mentioned similar things. Mrs. Lee squeezed Li Kai's shoulder with her little hand and paused. Yes. I don't know where that person is now. Li Kai shook his head. Do you still remember what that person did? The more I experience it, the more I doubt one thing. It's not just you who doubts it. In fact, everyone doubts it, Mrs. Lee pointed out. The two looked at each other and the couple said in unison, he might be from the future. After looking at each other in silence for a moment, Li Kai added, yes, we all doubted it. But I don't know why, we all believed what that person said at the beginning. Perhaps, only Mr. Mo knows his identity. It's a pity that Mr. Mo has not mentioned a word about that person's true identity and origin. Li Kai sighed, so, it may be true. Times have changed. Since we have chosen the Apocalypse Guild, we must do everything possible. Maybe, we should first strengthen the guild. In this way, no matter what changes are discovered in the world, we can respond in time. The two continued their conversation, pinching and pinching in the conference room, enjoying themselves. As she started playing, Mrs. Lee remembered something. By the way, hubby, I'm very surprised. Since the president is willing to lend you such a valuable prop, why did he think of charging a rental fee? This is his cleverness. Li Kai laughed happily. Have you noticed the change in the name of the president? Maybe I have been calling him president very seriously, and he has noticed it. So, I think the president wants to maintain his status as president, but he also doesn't want me to feel too obvious pressure from superiors and subordinates. Mrs. Lee looked surprised. You mean, he is a master in managing people? Yes, it can be called clever. Li Kai shrugged, a little helpless. It would be better if the president could ask for less. He wants too much. When Mrs. Lee heard this, her expression was startled, but after a few seconds, she couldn't help but smile and became happy. Right now. Li Kai's death mark shook slightly. A piece of news came. Li Kai's expression changed. Mrs. Lee noticed that something was wrong with Li Kai's expression, and when she asked, she found out that she was a member who was on duty today. She said there was a crazy woman who was not leaving at the door of the station, and was yelling some incomprehensible things. Crazy talk. Li Kai didn't want to deal with the matter personally, but when his subordinates relayed part of these crazy words to Li Kai and his wife went to the scene of the accident to see what happened. When I arrived at the gate of the station, there were many people crowded at the door. A dirty, tattered woman was acting up at the gate of the station, sometimes laughing, sometimes crying, saying strange words like come on, come on, come on. Looking closer, in addition to the crazy woman, there were also many newcomers who had just joined the guild and had not had time to show off. They were beaten all over the ground, with bruises and swollen faces. Apparently their level of enhancement was too low and they had nothing to gain from the crazy woman. To the benefit. Is this crazy woman so sassy? Li Kai was a little surprised. Mrs. Lee smiled slightly, fluttered her cheongsam, and swept into the crowd from a high place. She knocked the crazy woman down with 3 punches and 2 kicks, and stepped on the ground with 1 foot. The fair skin in the slit of the cheongsam stunned everyone present. Seeing that the other party was pitiful, Mrs. Lee did not kill him harshly, but she still beat him down. There is a slight difference in level between the two. The whole process takes less than a minute. There was a roar of applause from the melon-eating crowd. Many people even looked at Li Kai and Vice President Lee, who came later, with hidden expressions of regret in their eyes. Who are you? Pushing aside the crowd, Li Kai stepped forward and asked the crazy woman. The crazy woman looked young. She was wearing a dirty robe. The style of the robe was a bit like the ones worn by refugees in the battlefield. There was also a lot of dried blood on her body. His face was covered with dirt, he hadn't taken a shower for an unknown amount of time, and a smell of odor escaped from his body. Huh? After washing it, she might be quite beautiful. Someone with experience and sharp eyes saw the clues and couldn't help but whisper a bold idea. When Li Kai asked, the crazy woman just repeated coming. Coming. Coming, but other than that, she didn't say any other nutritious words. Ah! Captain Gu. While Li Kai was thinking about how to deal with this crazy woman who was acting up at the gate of Tiankai Guild's branch, one person in the crowd of onlookers squeezed out. It was Su Xiong, who Yi Lin specifically told Li Kai to take good care of before leaving. That was the great treasure of the Apocalypse Guild, the human spy detector Su Jingping's old father. Of course, Li Kai took good care of him, providing him with good food and housing, and sent elites to follow him during the gate trial, for fear that something might happen to him. You know. My old Su, hey. Let me take a look first. I'm afraid I'll admit my mistake, it would be bad if I admit my mistake. Although Su Xiong is very old, after entering the door 2 or 3 times, he feels much younger and his movements are nimble. He approached cautiously and brushed away the mad woman's hair. Oh my god. It's really Captain Gu. Gu Sinan. This crazy woman turned out to be Su Xiong's colleague in Qingcheng, Gu Sinan. Gu Sinan raised her head blankly, and she also saw Su Xiong, whose confused eyes were a little clearer. The crazy words in her mouth stopped immediately. After being stunned for a moment, Gu Sinan grabbed Su Xiong's arm hard and gasped, Su, it's you. Oh my god, who beat you so badly? How did you end up like this? It's me, Lao Su. Lao Su. Gu Sinan's face showed pain, and his dirty face twisted together. My head hurts, tell him, he's coming. They are coming. Seeing that Su Xiong knew this person, Li Kai felt puzzled, but when he heard that the other party seemed to be able to communicate, and his wife was in control, the other party couldn't jump up, so he stepped forward and asked in a deep voice, who is coming? Already. They are them, many corpses. Who do they mean? Gu Sinan raised his head vigorously, as if enduring some intense pain. She tried her best to open her mouth wide, and after taking 2 deep breaths, she finally choked out the following words. Heaven, Apocalypse. Apocalypse, is coming. Apocalypse Guild's residence, in front of the door. There was dead silence. Some newcomers turned back and glanced at the landmark behind them, the great engineer tower. They thought they were in the wrong place. But, we are in the right place. This is Hating City, this is the Great Engineer Tower, and this is the residence of the Apocalypse Guild, a frequently searched topic on the Apostle Forum. Everyone looked confused. Including Li Kai and his wife. We. It's Apocalypse. Apocalypse Guild, Snow Mountain Station. Weather. Overcast turns to light snow. The snow-capped mountain station has the concealing effect of the camouflage canopy. It is isolated from the world and no one cares about it. But inside, it was in full swing, like a paradise. A group of strong apostles had nowhere to display their brute force. They worked hard day and night and completed the construction of the water tower used to burn the boiler in a very short time. It will be officially put into use in just a few days. Meng Meng has been crazy busy during this period. She was wearing a construction site helmet, very down to earth, patrolling the construction site, and could not hide the dark circles under her eyes. Molly looked at the drawings, compared them back and forth, and put forward her own opinions on all the power transmission pipelines. Fortunately, among these Genstroops, there are many people who have worked as electricians, auto mechanics, and other professionals before. Molly felt like she was using her arms when she used them. Amorendi didn't care about foreign affairs at all, just like a lonely old man, he and Wang Tiandi raised the child together. Occasionally, Molly passed by the fitness center and saw a strange scene. That strange child was actually imitating Amorendi's boxing. No one is an enemy and does not hide his/her personal interests, so he can teach happily. Grandpa, can you kill a dog with a punch like this? Shuer asked, blinking her innocent eyes. Wang Guiyue. Wang Tiandi, who was lying on the side and finally rested for a while, the whole dog trembled, jumped up, stared at the dog, and dared not say anything in anger. Wait a minute, why do you punch and beat a dog to death? You can't do this as a naughty kid. Don't always use dogs as examples. Dogs are innocent. Dogs are also very tired. Unexpectedly, Amorendi thought seriously for a moment and finally nodded, yes. Wang Tiandi covered his eyes in despair. There are many strange scenes. Grandfather? Why did you call me Grandpa? Molly subconsciously felt that something was not right about the seniority. But Molly, who was busy with infrastructure construction all day long and was dizzy, didn't think about the details. As long as everything is prosperous. It's already early July. Nearly a month has passed since the dead soul disappeared from the station. Molly cursed all day long, always talking loudly. Although what she said was not pleasant to listen to, anyone with a little insight could see that this relationship was extraordinary, at least one-sided. How can the president be able to scold anyone with just his mouth? This ant dares. Therefore, the others just listened to Molly's complaints silently, not daring to interrupt, and just worked hard. This day. Yi. Sister Yi. Molly, who had been busy for a long time, was going to call Ling Yi to have lunch as usual. The commercial street has been open for some time. Molly was used to eating and drinking in the store. The people who opened the store also knew that Molly, Ling Yi, Amorendi, and Shuer had special status in the residence. They are not apostles and cannot provide DP, so they have no choice but to give prostitutes for nothing. Of course, it's okay to be prostituted by Ling Yi and Molly for free, as they don't eat much. But it is said that one store, which Li Ziyuki participated in the investment, was visited by Shuer for several days in a row. One day, someone accidentally saw Li Ziyuki and the shop owner banging their heads on the wall, and they didn't know what unspeakable mistake they had made. Molly came to Ling Yi's residence. She quietly opened the door. Inside, there was no one. This is very rare. As we all know, Ling Yi has trouble with her eyesight. Although she is now accustomed to the layout of the buildings in the station, she rarely goes out when no one is accompanying her, and her presence in the station is not strong. But today, Molly couldn't find Ling Yi. Did you go to the beach with Sister Xiao to carve words? Molly knew that since Oda Mai came back from visiting relatives in Yingdao, she had the habit of chopping the beach, the sea, and the air. When Oda dances on the beach, he can often cut out a neat death character, and his knife skills become more and more exquisite. While thinking about it, Molly walked towards the senior members area, the leisure beach. She didn't notice it before she left. Next to Ling Yi's bed, there is a pair of warm women's boots that she often wears. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Shueshi. Chapter 750. A corner of the battlefield. My wife Yuno is sitting on the floor. Behind her is a mountain. A twisted mountain of corpses. This mountain of corpses is made up of various types of monsters. My wife Yuno's cute school uniform was covered in blood. Covered in blood. But the blood was not hers. At that moment, a lot of blood was deliberately poured on the other person's neck. My wife, Yuno, was so excited that she forgot to hide. It's really good. My wife Yuno looked at the mountain of corpses and expressed her admiration. What a beauty. That was the noble phantasm released by Koto Mine Justice at the last moment of his life. Crooked Justice. Level EA. Type Anti-Evil Noble Phantasm. Effective range 120. Maximum catch 100 people. This Noble Phantasm was originally Kotoman's trump card. His Noble Phantasm is to shoot out the upright justice in his heart, turning justice into thousands of bullets, which has the effect of forcibly correcting all the twisted evil that hits it. This is a powerful treasure that can only be displayed with the help of the magic eye. But before he died, he couldn't figure out why this Noble Phantasm didn't work on my wife. Even if there is only one magic eye left, it is still a magic eye. Anyone with evil in their heart will be affected by the Noble Phantasm and forcibly corrected, but this corrected will be fed back to the physical body. The heart will be straightened, but the body will be bent instead. This is a strange treasure. Right now, the dead beasts were twisted into weird shapes. However, my wife, took a shot of Crooked Justice head on, but she was unscathed. This result is equivalent to Kotoman using his ultimate move fairly, but not completely. This child is so pitiful. My wife is sitting cross-legged. At her feet lay a fire axe stained with flesh. Between her legs, there was a head lying quietly. Kotoman's impartial head. His eyes were empty at this moment, and his fixed expression seemed to be crying. My wife actually doesn't know what Kotoman Terra did in the end. She was just stunned for a moment, and then rushed over and chopped off the opponent's head as she did normally, that's all. Just do it as usual. But why did he die? My wife thought we could play for a while longer. She threw the head aside casually, letting Kotoman's fair head and body reunite before standing up from where she stood. Aoki, as long as wins this god's game, I can live with you. Looked at the sky. In the night, the red pupils in the cracks were like bright little stars, but the color was not right. We agreed to go see the stars together. My wife, tore off a relatively clean piece of clothing from Kotoman Koji's body. She carefully wrapped the other eyeball. These eyes are so strange. It was obviously dug out, but it was still shiny and very beautiful. He will definitely be very happy to take such special eyes back as a gift to his beloved Suiwai. She decided to make a pair of mobile phone straps for couples. Axu will definitely like it very much. My wife, comes from a special world. In that world, she and 11 other people, each of whom has a future diary, predicts the future and starts a brutal fight on a stage called the world with God's authority as the bet. The person who survives in the end can become a god. Her lover, Yukiteru Amano, is an extremely handsome man with perfect masculinity who never cries. That day, Ashwe said that she liked the stars in the sky very much. So Anna fell in love with Axu. However, in the cruel game of God, only one of them is destined to survive. But so what? She has been working hard to be a good wife and mother. She is working hard to practice cooking with a kitchen knife. I love Ashwi the most. My wife, couldn't help but blush as she recalled bits and pieces of fragmented memories. She cupped her cheeks with her bloody hands and made a touching cooing sound. Axu, Axu, Axu. At this time, she was intoxicated in her memories when the cold voice of Master Cecilia came to her ears. Tisk, are you going back? My wife put away her axe and left here without looking back. Things like heroic spirits are really annoying. My wife said as we walked. And in the same place. Only the cold corpse was left, with Kotoman's head and body separated. His empty eyes stared blankly at the sky. What no one knows is, when his head was beheaded by his wife the last thought that flashed through his mind was not anger, nor despair, nor sadness. My wife's axe is too fast. When his head was about to be severed, he still had a few seconds where his brain still had the ability to think. Just a few seconds. In those few seconds, the words that his teacher, Merlin, said in front of the church in UK town echoed in Kodoman's mind. Goodbye, Kodoman Justice. Night is coming. There were only a few sounds of killing on the battlefield. The surviving soldiers were still tireless, using all their strength to slaughter the beasts around them. Monsters are no longer dense, and monster corpses are everywhere. Also, human corpses. No one mourns, no one grieves, no one suffers. Everyone still living on the battlefield has no emotions except numbness. Michelle was covered in blood and stumbled on the battlefield. She walked very, very slowly. There were scattered arrows stuck in her body. Some arrows even pierced her back and came out of her chest, staining her clothes red. The first Emperor's noble phantasm was truly terrifying. Michelle's mind replayed over and over again the majestic power of that man on the chariot. No. Now is not the time to think about this. Teacher, that teacher who knows everything well, must have expected what happened here. He even thought of an escape route for himself. Everyone who stays here will eventually die. Except for her, no one can escape from this singularity alive. Nobody. Michelle stumbled along the way. She traveled through a scattered battlefield. Finally, she saw a twisted mountain of corpses. The mountain of corpses was like a road sign, guiding Michelle forward. Next to the mountain of corpses, Michelle found Kodoman's body. She stared at Kodoman's head with empty eyes. After standing stunned for a moment, Michelle made a pop and knelt on the ground. How can it be? Michelle has spent all her strength along the way. She was pale from blood loss. But what shocked her even more was not the injuries on her body, nor the just death of Kodoman. But died. Michelle knelt beside Kodoman's head and murmured to herself, her confused voice echoing across the battlefield. He is dead? How is it possible? Without my intervention, Kodoman would definitely die. But in this case, what is the point of the teacher letting me come to this age of gods? What shocked her was her teacher's arrangement. She originally thought that Merlin asked her to come here to give Kodoman a fair blow at a critical moment. Although Michelle disdains being a traitor, Kodoman has dirty blood in his body. He is a disgrace to magicians. Killing him is not considered a betrayal. But why? So why did she come to this world under Merlin's arrangement? Correct. What Merlin clearly said at that time was to ensure Kodoman's just death, not to witness Kodoman's just death. As a native European, Michelle can still appreciate the subtle differences in grammar and wording. So, why? No, I want to ask the teacher myself. After struggling in place for an unknown amount of time, Michelle, who had lost a lot of blood, turned her right hand and a dark knife appeared in her hand. It was her escape from the world. She didn't panic from the beginning. Because she has a way to leave the singularity. From the very beginning, Merlin gave her the greatest support for her life. This prototype noble phantasm, after arriving in the age of gods, was given magical power again due to the blessing of the Holy Grail. The unholy blade of betrayal. Level EX. Type opposite noble phantasm. Effective range. Biggest catch. Look at the name of the noble phantasm. Michelle suddenly felt a little ironic. This knife can break through the barrier of the singularity and create a space passage that can only accommodate one person, allowing her to return to reality safely. But isn't her departure an unholy betrayal to the remaining heroes still fighting on the battlefield? Sarcasm is sarcasm, it should be used. Michelle grabbed the dagger, and the black light flashed in front of her, and the dagger disappeared in her hand instantly. Where the dagger disappeared, a crack with a neat edge was cut. The inside is dark and deep, and seems to be similar to the one in the sky. Just one big and one small. Teacher. Michelle struggled toward the crevice. What a delightful dance drama. Laugh. Laugh. Two piercing sounds came from behind Michelle, and she almost heard the wind behind her head when two bloody spikes passed through Michelle's left and right hands respectively, nailing her to the ground alive. What a touching friendship. Gu Tianqing walked step by step from the darkness with a smile on her face. If I could, I should have given my most sincere applause at this most wonderful moment. Unfortunately, now I can't do it. Michelle looked at each other in shock. There are many reasons for shock. One is Gu Tianqing's betrayal. Second, Gu Tianqing penetrated her with a spike. As for the third one, when Gu Tianqing came over, his shoulders were empty. His hands were broken at shoulder level. The bloody fracture was as smooth as a mirror, as if it had been cut in half with an extremely sharp instrument, very neatly. This. Behind Gu Tianqing was the spirit of Freya. He looked down at the wounds on his shoulders, smiled, and shook his head. There is no way. Facing a legendary figure of that level, if you want to escape from him, it is already difficult. It's the minimum bet, and the price. While talking, Gu Tianqing came to Michelle. He happily gave the other person a few more thrusts. Boo-hoo-hoo. Every movable part of Michelle's body was covered with spikes. Except for her breathing and lips, no other parts could move. I'm sorry. Gu Tianqing bowed to Michelle gracefully, because the smile of death appeared in my divination. I thought that by following the president here, I could avoid disaster. Because of certain things, I can't die just yet. But what I didn't expect was that following the president to Europe would actually make my divination come true, which is really ridiculous. Michelle's eyes were widened and bloodshot, and she said nothing. But her two rows of teeth were clenched and grinding together, blood squeezed out from between her teeth, and a strong unwillingness appeared on her face. I can't die yet, really. Although I want to taste the taste of death, there is a reason why I can't die. Gu Tianqing smiled helplessly, and said to the unholy blade of betrayal, this magical anti-realm treasure. He walked through the rift in space, faced Michelle with his indifferent back, and said with a smile, goodbye, stranger from the west. This is the real purpose of Gu Tianqing following Yilin to Europe. He originally thought that Yilin had a strong evil spirit and could ward off evil spirits. I didn't expect that I would end up in this situation. Everything is fate. But Gu Tianqing refused to accept it. He divined, but he refused to obey orders. After arriving in the Age of Gods, he once again divined for himself before the tarot cards could still be used. To Gu Tianqing's surprise, a glimmer of hope turned out to be in the unfamiliar Michelle. As a result, Gu Tianqing has been paying attention to Kotomine and Michelle. From this point of view, his divination is still very accurate. But this also makes Gu Tianqing even more worried. When will the smile of death come true? Gu Tianqing's figure disappeared into the crack. Watching Gu Tianqing cut off his beard and leave, Michelle was stuck on the ground, roaring angrily like a dying beast. But the next moment, a sharp thorn flew out from behind the space rift, pierced Michelle's neck, and took away Michelle's last breath. Michelle is dead. I will never die with my eyes in peace. He also died next to Kotomine's fair body. Until the crack disappeared, her pupils gradually dilated, and her body temperature dissipated with the wind. In fact, Gu Tianqing didn't need to kill her. But Gu Tianqing thought of something. He cut off Michelle's beard, which will definitely make her resentful. That kind of look was all too familiar to Gu Tianqing. He used to be like a walking corpse. Every minute and every second he looked in the mirror, he had this look in his eyes filled with hatred. If Michelle is left behind, she will not become a fighting force for Yilin. Instead, she will madly retaliate against Yilin and Miriam, who once stood on the same side as Gu Tianqing. That's why Gu Tianqing killed the dying Michelle before leaving. Do it to the best of your ability, to save Yilin from even a trivial trouble. President, this is the last thing I can do for you. I'm sorry. Such a pity. Gu Tianqing apologized to the heir and the two deceased people, but Yilin couldn't hear it. Otherwise, Yilin would definitely come over and beat him up. After Michelle was confirmed to be dead, Gu Tianqing used Michelle's noble phantasm to leave the Age of Gods. Koto Mine Koji was already dead, but the doll that looked like Koto Mine Koji suddenly fell out from his clothes. The doll seemed to come to life, strangely sitting up next to Koto Mine. It stretched out its hand, and the stitches on its body wrapped around Kotoman's body bit by bit. The separated heads were reattached with sutures. Koto Mine is alive. He stood up unsteadily. There are no eyeballs in the empty eye sockets. Koto Mine Justice sighed softly and walked to Michelle, who was crucified on the ground not far away with wide eyes, and gently closed his eyelids. "I'm sorry, Michelle," Koto Mine fair. Koto Mine Justice lowered his head and said, "My two outstanding students, Merlin is proud of you. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment." Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Shueshi. Chapter 751. Miriam ordered a curry stick. This was the winning sword that she poured all her magic power into. Her family has recorded the glorious deeds of countless ancestors. Although some of these deeds are inconsistent with historical facts, this does not prevent Miriam from growing up bathing in the glory of her ancestors. At the end of these family inheritance classics, it is recorded that the ancestors died because of betrayal. The betrayers claimed that King Arthur had no heirs. Some historical research even claims that King Arthur actually did not exist at all. But it must be there. Miriam's existence, the title she inherited, and Pendragon's bloodline were all ironclad evidence that the King of Knights existed back then. She firmly believes this. This firm belief has also become Miriam's faith, allowing her to live to this day. When she was 1 year old, she captured the family emblem when she captured Joe, and the whole family celebrated together. At the age of 2, the first word she learned was Excalibur. When she was a child, she would often hold her wooden sword high and shout curry sticks at the human-shaped wooden target. When she was 4 years old, she slept with her ancestor's sword in her arms every day. At the age of 6, she began to learn swordsmanship. The popular swordsmanship at that time focused on stabbing. But she prefers to pay New Year greetings and feel that it is more enjoyable. When she was 8 years old, she was abused over and over again by the family's kendo teacher. The teachers all shook their heads and secretly lamented that Miriam, who had captured the family emblem at the age of 1 and was destined to carry forward the Pendragon family, had a worrying talent in swordsmanship. When she was 12 years old, a big sister wearing black clothes and a mask quietly came to the Pendragon family, saying that she wanted to teach her the way to victory. The eldest sister had short golden hair, which was very similar to hers, and her voice was cold, but Miriam somehow found it pleasant. At that time, she foolishly thought that it would be great if she could have such a beautiful voice when she grew up. Under the big sister's mask, there must be a very beautiful face. The girl's heart was filled with something called longing. At the age of 13, she became enlightened, became awesome, and began to beat all the invincible opponents of her age. At the age of 14, the mysterious eldest sister left and never appeared again. The eldest sister said that one day, they will meet each other. At the age of 15, she inherited the title of King of Knights and officially inherited her ancestor's sword. Her appetite also began to increase, doubling and doubling. The elders in the tribe were very happy. Legend has it that their ancestors were also very good at eating. Miriam believed that the sword of the ancestors and the glory of the ancestors were invincible. Must win. That's why that sword is called the sword of vow to victory. It means, I make an oath with this sword to bring victory to the kingdom. But. Plop. Exhausted, Miriam's knees weakened and she knelt on the ground involuntarily. She stared blankly at Zhao Zilong, who was 20 meters away. Except for his right arm, which was shaking violently, his whole body was unscathed. This sword didn't even penetrate the opponent's fluttering cloak. He actually blocked it. But it wasn't completely blocked. In that gorgeous golden light, Myrian could clearly see what happened at that moment. Zhao Zilong was in the midst of lightning and flint, and the tip of his gun was vibrating crazily, with a frequency that was almost impossible to detect with the naked eye. The trembling spear tip, just as the light of the sword was about to strike in front of him, gently pushed away a corner. It was that seemingly easy move that pushed Myrian's precious phantom sword of Oath of Victory away and shot it diagonally into the sky. Zhao Zilong looked up to the sky and roared, extremely happy. He laughed happily, as if he was excited because he blocked the sword. Myrian suddenly felt that she could understand the other party's mood very well. If she could block such an awesome sword, she would smile like that dissolutely. I lost. Miriam lowered her head. Zhao Zilong walked towards Miriam step by step. As he walked, Zhao Zilong's trembling right arm returned to calm as he walked. In fact, Zhao Zilong was not as relaxed as he seemed on the surface. At that moment just now, he used his cleverness. Facing Todoroki head-on, he couldn't fight that sword. Actually, I lost. But in the end, it was me, Changshan Zhao Zilong, who won. Zhao Zilong pointed his spear horizontally and gave the enemy General Miriam the highest praise. The implication is that the sword he blocked was not a clash of warrior swords, so he lost. But he will win this battle between generals on the battlefield, so he wins. He, Changshan Zhao Zilong, will take off the enemy general's head. No. Myrian struggled to get up, and she used her last strength to stand the golden sword in front of her. She was obviously exhausted. It was obvious that she no longer had the strength to even swing the sword. It was obvious that her magic power had been exhausted and she could no longer squeeze out any drop of it. But Miriam stood up. The glory of her ancestors warned her that she could die or be defeated, but she could never give up, and she could never lie down and be killed by the enemy. Shine, the glory of our ancestors. Miriam's face showed a look of determination to die. Pretty. Zhao Zilong moved and stabbed Myrian's throat with his spear. Sorry, her life is mine. Just when Miriam was about to die under Zhao Zilong's gun, a gleaming bullet was shot from Myrian's back. A bullet. Miriam was stunned. It's Yilin. Yilin is here. The cook is here. Miriam was surprised, and at the same time, she felt a rare touch of emotion deep in her heart. There was a flash of light in front of Zhao Zilong's eyes, and he changed the direction of the gun tip almost the moment the bullet was shot. Ding! The moment the tip of Yajiao's gun came into contact with the bullet, the barrel of the gun was suddenly bent by 45 degrees, as if it would be broken at any time. Zhao Zilong looked at the bent Yajiao spear in shock, but his reaction was faster than his shock. His steps changed, he suddenly twisted his body in a strange movement, the spear stretched and swung, the terrifying power coming from the tip of the spear, 80% of it was removed in an instant. Let the world feel pain from now on. A circle appeared behind Myrian, and Yilin appeared from behind the teleportation circle holding two guns. After seeing Zhao Zilong block the shot with his spear strength, he did not hesitate. After blocking it, he glared at Zhao Zilong, who had not yet adjusted his posture, and released disaster-ridden. This time, Yilin finally understood all the restrictions on skills, which is gratifying. But it's not because of Yilin's whim that it takes so long, nor because Yilin misses the past. But in fact, when Yilin was studying skills and successfully unlocked Disaster Haunted, she developed two completely different ways to unlock the skill. The first is to shorten the chanting time as much as possible and get as close to the instant effect as possible. The second is to greatly increase the infusion of spiritual energy while retaining the original singing restrictions, turning this small consuming skill into a medium consuming skill and expanding the influence of negative status. In short, those who are infected can greatly reduce the resistance of the will attribute, and will inevitably be affected by more than 2 negative states, and the duration of the negative states will be extended. Under the influence of the rules of the Holy Grail War, each adapted class has strengthened its resistance to magic, giving them terrible resistance to various magic effects and negative states. From the moment Yulin understood the rules of the Holy Grail, he realized that the world seemed to be full of malice towards him. Therefore, facing Zhao Zilong, a legendary general who had great military exploits in his previous life, Yulin could only use this method of unlocking to make his skills effective. The invisible and colorless power of disaster shot towards Zhao Zilong. At this point, Zhao Zilong's body has not regained balance in order to block Yulin's 10-layer charged super bullet. This is the best time for a sneak attack. Yulin knew that this was not kind. But even Miriam, who was good at close combat, was forced to go to this point in a one-on-one duel with Zhao Zilong. Talking about martial ethics with the other party was self-destructive and not shameful. Yulin believed that given the other party's broad mind, he wouldn't mind such details. But Zhao Zilong blocked the bullet, and the ground collapsed under his feet. The force of the bullet was removed by him. At this time, on Zhao Zilong's chest, the mirror-like decoration flashed with light. An even more dazzling reflection bounced back towards Yulin from the mirror. I am stupid. Heart-protecting bronze mirror that protects against all evils. Level B. Type versus magical noble phantasm. Effective range 115. Biggest catch. The invisible power of disaster bounced back towards Yulin after being reflected by the breast mirror. Fortunately, Yulin responded quickly. Without saying anything, he activated another ability. Ouch tutu tutu. In the void, in front of Yulin, a square stream of light appeared. Blue squares quickly formed the shape of a night dire in front of Yulin. The aloof Cybertronian gentleman, Nightmare, comes from across the border. Night dire appears. It hadn't appeared for a long time. Before its body was completely condensed, the half-condensed exhaust pipe was already emitting a roar. It knew that it had a heavy responsibility. In mid-air, Dire took the initiative to transform into Cybertron mode. The steel giant struck the ground, blocking the light reflected in Zhao Zilong's breast mirror. The next second, the tall Cybertronian motorcyclist twisted his waist happily between Zhao Zilong and Yulin. Zhao Zilong looked a little startled, and the appearance of Night Dire made him hesitate for a moment. These successive appearances disrupted Zhao Zilong's rhythm. It was obviously a one-on-one fight, but suddenly it turned into a group fight, and no one could accept it. But he is a legendary military commander after all, a legendary military commander who has experienced hundreds of battles. After a brief moment of confusion, he picked up his Yajiao gun and stabbed the flashing headlights in Night Dire's chest. The headlights shattered and Nightmare screamed, but the damage was not serious. The skill effect of Disaster Haunted was bounced back and landed on the poor Night Dire's head. Zhao Zilong stabbed Night Dire one after another and swung it on Night Dire's head, displaying the sportsmanship of treating everyone equally on the battlefield and showing no mercy. The Dire's armor plate has been level reinforced and is not built. Zhao Zilong's hurried spears left holes in the Dire's armor plate, but they were unable to move the Dire's muscles. With Zhao Zilong's strength, he had already reached the point where he could stab someone to death without a gun. But Dire is too hard. Zhao Zilong frowned and found that the opponent in front of him was slightly gnashing his teeth. First it was charm, then stun, and then blinding was added. After a series of negative states, Night Dire's body was hit with one shot by Zhao Zilong, leaving holes and holes in it. Zhao Zilong stopped. Interesting. Zhao Zilong stood with his spear tilted in front of him and stopped drawing it. Because he discovered that Yulin and Myrian, who were hiding behind the armored man just now, disappeared there at some point. After a while, there was a flash of light, and the Night Dire disappeared. Zhao Zilong looked at the looming city in the distance, with the corner of his mouth slightly raised. At this moment, Cecilia issued an order to Zhao Zilong through the command spell. Retreat. Zhao Zilong frowned and fell into deep thought. This battle is over for now. For now. After counting the number of Uruk soldiers, there were only less than 1,000 Uruk soldiers who returned from the battlefield alive. To be precise, 623 people. It was a brutal battle. Among the 6 heroic spirits who went on the expedition, only Yilin and Myrian were left alive and returned to Uruk city. There were too many dead on the battlefield. The remaining people no longer have the ability to collect the bodies for them. When Yilin returned to Uruk city, she was shocked by the scene in front of her. A big hole was broken in the city wall. Starting from the city wall, a gully 10 meters wide extended to the front of the temple. The people in Uruk, old, young, women and children, suffered thousands of casualties in this wave of attacks. The entire city of Uruk was shrouded in silent despair. Under this wave of offensive, the surviving Uruk people seemed to have lost the ability to cry. Every person Yilin could see had a confused and numb emotion on their faces. Some of the surviving soldiers had mutilated limbs, were covered in blood, and had lost their combat effectiveness. Even Myrian, who had always been high-spirited, had a rare look of sadness on her face when she witnessed the tragic scene in Uruk city with her own eyes. Sigula found Yilin with an ugly face and a confused Miriam in front of the city gate. "My king has an order, please have a good rest in order to face the upcoming hard battle." Sigula bowed and said with her face still veiled. Her tone was incredibly calm, as if everything in front of her could not cause the slightest fluctuation in her heart. "Where are the others? My king has an order, please." Sigula planned to repeat what she just said. Yilin interrupted Sigula rudely, "Let me ask, where are the Gilgamesh people?" Sigula was silent for a moment and closed her eyes. After a moment, Sigula opened her eyes again and replied slowly, "The king has another sentence for you." "Explain." "If you dare to come to my palace and disturb my rest, just be aware that you will die, reptile." This is what my king said. Yilin rolled her eyes. This sentence is really his style. Yilin walked towards the temple tower. "Lord Castor." Yilin paused and did not turn around. Behind Yilin, Sigula lowered her head, put her fists on her bulging chest, and said softly, "Heroic spirits from the future, please, please, witness the future of Uruk." Yilin was slightly startled. He didn't understand what Sigula meant by this. But he still nodded and said nothing. In this war, no one can stay out of it. This is true even for Yilin and Miriam, who joined here inexplicably. Their future and their lives have long been linked to Uruk. Yilin didn't say anything to ask where Koto Mine, Michelle, and Gu Tianqing had gone. If they were alive, they would naturally return to Uruk. In the wilderness outside Uruk, as far as the eye could see, there was no living creature walking around. After finally killing Black Assassin, Yilin walked out of the space of evil thoughts and saw Baal's body at the same place. Baal is dead. Burnt all over. She was electrocuted. Hungfa and Baal died successively. Koto Mine, Michelle, and Gu Tianqing did not come back. Now, in this unfair war, only Yilin and Myrian are left. He, he. Yilin walked all the way to the temple, letting out a strange laugh. Along the road, people of Uruk were sitting in the messy city. They made no sound except their breathing and heartbeat. Yilin walked past them silently, stepped onto the stone steps, and walked to the palace. In the empty palace, Gilgamesh was alone, sitting on a high throne, shaking a golden goblet in his hand, which contained amber ale. "You came." Gilgamesh was silent for a moment before taking the initiative to speak. Yilin walked up to Gilgamesh. There was no preamble or foreshadowing. Yilin pointed directly at the golden goblet in Gilgamesh's hand and expressed his intention. "Lend me your holy grail." Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Shueshi. Chapter 752. Yiren made a bold request. Gilgamesh, sitting high on the throne, fell into silence. Biting murderous intent, centered on Gilgamesh, erupted in the palace. Yilin's eyebrows hurt and she subconsciously took 2 steps back. In front of my eyes. Gilgamesh's figure seemed to have grown several times taller, making people feel fearful and unattainable. His murderous intent was real. When Yilin coveted the king's treasure, Gilgamesh reflexively became murderous. Fortunately, Gilgamesh restrained himself. After a few seconds, Gilgamesh regained his composure. No one can covet my king's treasure. Gilgamesh changed the subject. The future of this war has already been determined. Oh, Yilin sneered, is this what you saw with your eyes? Gilgamesh nodded, this is the future of Uruk. Yilin frowned, but I come from the future. No, Gilgamesh sat on the throne and shook his head lazily, that is your future, not Uruk's future. Yilin was speechless. He felt that the conversation with this guy had reached a dead end. He seems to have an unusual obsession with golden treasures. Even if I die, I won't borrow it. He gets mad when he borrows it. Who are these people? So stingy? Isn't it just a holy grail? Can it be beaten to death? Yilin was in the palace, Gilgamesh did not chase him away, and Yilin did not give up. He had long expected that such a bold move as borrowing the holy grail would not go so smoothly. I didn't expect it to be that difficult. When Gilgamesh heard this, he even released his murderous intent. If the current situation was not so urgent that Yilin could no longer remain calm, he would not risk offending Gilgamesh. Using his past experience, in the trial, if you want the character in the trial to do something, you must gain enough favorability. Only when your favorability level goes up can you do whatever you want. What's more, it's the Holy Grail, a prop that can be called legendary. However, King Gilgamesh has a weird personality and is not good at food. For a while, Yilin really couldn't think of any way to quickly improve Gilgamesh's favorability. Fooling. It's not easy to fool. Treasure exchange? There are no legendary items on him that can be exchanged. Suddenly, Yilin fell into deep entanglement. Etc. Yilin suddenly remembered what Xiao 11 once said. So he advised, little, ahem, time is not linear, and there are various possibilities in the future. What you see may be just one of them. If you don't work hard, no one knows what the result will be. Think about it, now that we are here, what changes should happen? Hearing this, Gilgamesh said with undisguised contempt in his eyes, ignorant mortal. Yilin was silent and clenched her fists, really wanting to hit him. Gilgamesh stood up from his throne. The king asked you to come, and I just want to say a word to you. Tonight, the gods will launch a general attack on Uruk. Uruk will be completely destroyed tonight. Gilgamesh chuckled, as if he had been relieved of a heavy burden. Use your ignorance with your eyes, witness the end of Uruk with your own eyes. No. Yilin gritted his teeth. He was not a heroic spirit who could return to the throne of heroes after death. He was a living person who was tricked here. Once he died, he would be completely dead. Uruk can perish, but he cannot die. Definitely not. Lend me the Holy Grail. Yilin took a step forward with a determined expression. He can't die. Cannot. Absolutely not. As long as there is a glimmer of hope, Yilin will not give up. Oh, hearing this rude request again, facing Gilgamesh who coveted his treasure, he sneered, borrow? My treasure is my property. No one has ever dared to covet me. The Holy Grail is a treasure among the king's treasures. I will lend it to you. You can borrow the Holy Grail from me at no cost other than paying your humble life. Yes, Yilin took a deep breath of the rich magic that filled the palace. I will bring victory. Gilgamesh was silent. He was silent again. Seems to be touched. Enkidu. The green-haired and handsome little prince spirit Enkidu appeared behind Gilgamesh. Crash dash. The golden lock of heaven stretches out from the ripples emerging behind Gilgamesh. Yilin's expression changed. He made a last-ditch effort. If I say that I am very familiar with your god, 11 Yilin hasn't finished speaking yet. Roll. The lock of heaven was activated, and Gilgamesh mercilessly pulled Yilin out of the palace. After ruthlessly taking Yilin out of the palace, Enkidu transformed into a possessed spirit again, floating beside Gilgamesh. Jill, you obviously want to lend it to him. Shut up, huh? Enkidu covered his mouth and snickered. In order to avoid Gilgamesh's embarrassment, he disappeared into the palace in an instant. Victory. In the empty palace, Gilgamesh's cold voice echoed. Yilin lay on the cold ground. Like a statue. He raised his head and looked at the stars. The dazzling cracks were clearly visible in the starry sky. Within the crack, red eyes peered at this world. World. What is it? Auranos once said that the world is a ship, the universe is a river, and humans are just gravel in the river. So, what level of existence are the eyes peering into the world from outside the rift? The deeper the contact with these levels of existence, Yilin felt that everything seemed to be shrouded in fog, unable to distinguish clearly. The whole city was filled with despair. Despair has become the main theme of Uruk. No. It is the main theme of the world. The whole world was destroyed. The people in Uruk may be the only remaining population in this world. If this is the history that really happened in this world 5,000 years ago, then how will humans survive 5,000 years later? Zioxy, why haven't you appeared? What happens after today? Uren is very strange. He felt like a little goldfish, swimming well in the lake, but was caught up in the wave called history, floating up and down, and about to be drowned in the big waves. Cold. When Yilin looked up at the stars, a calm face appeared in front of Yilin's sight, blocking the starry sky. Yilin lay on her back and Myrian bent over. The two looked at each other in this strange way for a while. Yilin pushed Myrian's face away with a straight face to prevent the two from accidentally bumping into each other. He sat up, stared at Miriam, and recognized her forehead for a while, then he couldn't laugh or cry. Are you hungry again? Well, I'm hungry. She lowered her head, actually a little shy. I'm convinced. But then I thought about it, it was time for normal dinner now, so I couldn't blame her. Later, Yilin found a piece of meat in the desperate city, built a bonfire in front of the goddess statue, and grilled meat on the bonfire. Only then did he remember that as a caster, he also had a class skill of item creation. Yilin was still depressed about being driven out of the palace by Gilgamesh with 2 whips. While thinking about the probability of dropping the Holy Grail after killing Gilgamesh, he activated the ability of item creation and put it on the barbecue. Instill magic. It sounds complicated, but it's actually very simple. The rich magic power in the gods allowed Yilin to clearly feel the flow of magic power in his body, which was slightly different from the elusive spiritual energy value before. He turned the barbecue fork skillfully, and soon, the fragrant smell spread around. In the current despair, Yilin swaggered to get food from the store, but no one paid attention to her. While Yilin was grilling the meat, he set up a pot on the campfire, selected some ingredients that he liked, and added them to the pot as if it was free. Oh, it really doesn't cost any money. His soul cooking skills are not something to be concealed. 10 minutes later, a bright light flashed, and almost the whole city was alarmed. Uruk people and soldiers started to come to the light out of curiosity, wanting to see what this bright and fragrant ingredient was. Moreover, the direction in which the light flashes and the fragrance wafts comes from the goddess statue Nozomi. Some people even boldly believe that the goddess has appeared. When the surviving Uruk people came to the goddess square sparsely, They were shocked to find that someone was barbecuing in front of the statue of the goddess. Hateful! How dare you? Aren't you afraid of the goddess' wrath? More and more Uruk people were watching. Myrian gradually discovered that their behavior seemed to cause public outrage. But the smell coming from the barbecue and the pot is so fragrant. So Myrian silently clutched the sword in the lake, showing her silent support with actions. She will become Yilin's strongest sword and shield. At first the people of Uruk were very angry. But when they saw that the people barbecuing were the heroic spirits Castor and Saber, they immediately dared not speak out. In silence, someone's stomach made a growling sound. This is so fragrant. Another flash of light, soaring into the sky. The moment Yilin opened the lid of the pot, several colors of light stung the eyes of all Uruk people. All right. Yilin smiled, very satisfied with her cooking skills. Yilin was surprised when she felt the large piece of roast meat and the properties in the pot. Inspiring, invigorating, exciting, energetic. Stewed stew and barbecue have 4 different gain attributes. It's a bit awesome. Even Yilin herself felt a little surprised. Food cooked casually has these effects. There was an Uruk child, covered in filth. Finally, he couldn't bear the torment of the smell. He danced a moon dance under his feet and involuntarily moved closer to Yilin and Miriam. Want to eat? Yilin cut off a juicy piece of barbecue. The child nodded vigorously. Myrian moved faster. Without waiting for Yilin to do anything, she tore off a large piece and gnawed it on the spot. Her hair was shaking so much that she had no time to express any more praises except eating. Good, good, delicious. The expressions on the child's face are unpredictable. He uttered an unprecedented exclamation. The child's exclamation attracted other Uruk people. Some people don't believe it and come forward to give it a try. Then, it fell. And then, more Uruk people fell into the taste of food. No one would dare to hold Yilin accountable for having a barbecue in front of the goddess statue. Because it smells so good. So delicious. The whole city was shocked. All the people of Uruk rushed to tell each other that the goddess had appeared and that food that did not belong to this world appeared in Uruk. 10 minutes later, all the people of Uruk came to eat with pottery bowls in their hands. Some people even took the initiative to carry thigh meat on their shoulders and asked Yilin to grill more meat. Yilin burst into laughter, but he found that without even realizing it, the atmosphere of despair in Urukri was completely gone with this meal. See, that's the power of good food. Yilin said proudly to Myrian. After working hard to roast the meat, and setting up a pot to cook next to it, Yilin and Myrian retreated outside the bonfire. They looked at the crowded diners inside, and Yilin sighed. No, Miriam wiped her mouth with satisfaction. She was full and couldn't hold it anymore. She patted her belly, shook her head and smiled. This is your power. Miriam ate the most. Of course she has a say. After eating so much food, she felt that the fatigue and negative emotions in her body gradually dissipated as the delicious food stimulated her taste buds and vibrated in her stomach. There is magical power in this food. The two were silent for a moment. Miriam raised her head, looked up at the stars, and said 4 words in a sonorous and powerful tone, "We can win." Yilin looked at Myrian in surprise. He felt that Miriam shouldn't be so naive when she was able to survive until now. 7 heroic spirits died and 2 remained. Of the tens of thousands of Uruk troops, less than 1,000 survived. The next wave of alien attacks will definitely be more violent. In this situation, Yilin could not find any other way for them to leave alive except the Holy Grail. However, Myrian still said these words in this desperate situation. Can you win? Yilin was speechless. From beginning to end, he kept thinking about the same question. Why did they, the 7 heroic spirits, appear in this era? What effect does their existence have on this period of history? If there is not Miriam saw that Yulin was in a low mood and said nothing, so she patted Yulin's shoulder hard and said with a bang, "I swear in the name of my ancestors that in the end, I will fight with you until the end. At the last moment of my life, I will never betray you. I will definitely repay your kindness for cooking." As she spoke, Miriam clenched her fists and stretched out her iron fist. Yulin's bones were in severe pain from being slapped, and she really wanted to say, "Brother, please be gentle," but after hearing Miriam's words, Yulin's eyes flickered, she was silent for a few seconds, and she also extended her fist. Their fists touched lightly in mid-air. Good. Miriam seemed to have forgotten one thing. The glory of the ancestors that she was pursuing so hard was still in Yulin's body. Yulin also temporarily put aside her original intention of coming to the Tower of War server. Now, the two have become the only two people to survive in this trial. In order to achieve the common goal of leaving alive, they have reached an agreement. While the whole city is carving up barbecues and cooking. Above the palace, Gilgamesh watched all this with cold eyes. The lifeless Uruk seemed to be revitalized by this meager food. Enkidu appeared behind Gilgamesh and smiled. "Jill, it seems, your speech is no longer needed." Presumptuous, yes. Gilgamesh raised his head, was breathless for a while, and retorted forcefully, "Nothing in the world can replace the king's encouragement." Yet. Enkidu covered his mouth with a smile and disappeared secretly. Ta, tap, tap, tap. Gilgamesh walked to the edge of the palace step by step. The sound of heavy footsteps, like the sound of drums, swayed into the sky. With every step he took, from the ripples behind him, a piece of golden armor automatically attached itself to his body. When he reached the outer edge of the palace, he had completed the transformation process. The shining golden armor is particularly bright and dazzling under the night sky. The city residents who had almost eaten all raised their heads and looked in the direction of the golden light. "King! King! Wang Wu Wu!" Some people quickly finished chewing the food in their mouths and shouted the king's name. King Gilgamesh opened and closed his eyes, completing the process of changing from red to gold. Declaring to all the people who remain in Uruk. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Xueshi. Chapter 753. Declaring to all the people who remain in Uruk. The king's voice was as powerful as the power of heaven. While Gilgamesh was speaking, the people of Uruk stood up one after another. After shouting the king's trumpet, they quickly became quiet again. Everyone stared at the aloof King Gilgamesh with wide eyes. Their eyes were burning with blazing fire. All of them had just finished eating and were in a panic. Gilgamesh overlooks the city. His eyes swept over everyone, including Yulin and Miriam. King Gilgamesh continued loudly. 3 years ago, our god 11 decided to challenge the Lord. She ascends to the highest level with the awareness of us all. But the cowardly and corrupt masters, the gods who fear me, the 4 gods under the masters, launched an attack on our world. Fairy Mountain Kunlun and mysterious land Atlantis have fallen successively. Now, only we Tiangong Uruk are left, making the final struggle. A year ago, I told you that no matter how hard we struggle, Uruk will eventually be destroyed. You can run away, you can indulge in pleasure, you can lament your fate, or you can enjoy this last time in any way. But you still decided to fight to the end for Uruk and 11. You all know this is the outcome, but you still insist on living up to the name of hope and fighting against God. Gilgamesh crossed his arms. There is no doubt that Uruk is a happy city. We believe, we survive, we reproduce, and we progress. Including this king, we all feel proud that we are the people of 11 and that we are a member of Uruk. Speaking of which, in the silence of everyone, Gilgamesh took a deep breath and waved his hand. I repeat it again. Uruk will eventually be destroyed. This will become history that no one can change. But there is no need for you to be sad. Because, as long as one of us can survive, as long as one of us can witness the dawn, our fighting attitude in this battle will be forever engraved in the memory of the future. Even if we die in the end. Even if we leave no descendants. We will also leave our will to fight in the minds of others. We will be missed by others. We will become the faith of others. Our will also become the will of others. Our struggle today will become the link between history and future. It is not the inheritance of any blood, heirs, or descendants, but the inheritance of our human will, thoughts, and spirit. The destruction of Uruk does not mean the destruction of us humans. We will use our blood and our lives to attack the high-altitude masters and those corrupt gods head-on, and let them marvel at the tenacity and immortality of us humans. We will use our struggle as a pivot to open the way to a new era for future generations of mankind. Gilgamesh clenched his fist hard, and golden light illuminated the sky. The elites of Uruk. Dedicate your humble lives to this king. Our will be passed down forever. Humanity will eventually win. Gilgamesh's words ignited the will of all Uruk people. Everyone raised their arms and shouted. They were armed. Put on your battle armor. Humanity will prevail. Humanity will prevail. Humanity will prevail. The cries of a few hundred people made the dilapidated city of Uruk shake. Right now. Yulin and Myrian, who were silent, raised their heads at the same time. Look towards the stars. Next to that crack, another huge crack opened. Beyond that, another crack appeared. As the cracks in the starry sky appeared, the entire night sky was torn into pieces. Eyes appeared strangely behind the cracks. They are coming. Gilgamesh finished his speech, which made Uruk's fighting spirit become fierce and high. Yulin suddenly figured out that even without his food and without his props to gain the boost, the despair hanging over the city of Uruk would be dispelled by the appearance of Gilgamesh. Yulin's existence and Yulin's actions did not change history. History is still operating according to the established trend. Understood? Human. Gilgamesh walked up to Yulin and said with a straight face. I don't understand. Yulin and Myrian stood up at the same time. He looked at Gilgamesh calmly. You said that Uruk's future does not represent my future. Then Uruk is destined to be destroyed. I must not die here. Finally, listen to my advice and lend me the Holy Grail. Don't force me, otherwise. Take it. Gilgamesh threw a small gadget towards Yulin. Yulin was stunned. His next words were all stuck in his throat, and he couldn't spit them out quickly. He almost said, it's not me but the world that's wrong. Yulin caught the object thrown by Gilgamesh. It's the Holy Grail. Gilgamesh casually threw the Holy Grail over like trash. Hummed. What to do if you smash flowers and plants? Yulin looked at the Holy Grail in her hand and raised her head, with a bit of surprise in her eyes. Didn't you say you wouldn't lend it? Humph, you underestimate my king's inventory. Gilgamesh looked away and snorted, it's just a mere Holy Grail. Just the Holy Grail. Thank you for making it easy. Didn't you say before that the Holy Grail is also a treasure in your treasure house? Now it's just the Holy Grail. Yulin only dared to say these words in her heart. If he really spoke out, King Gilgamesh might turn against him. So Yulin allowed the other party to show off. Feeling the magic power surging out of the small rim of the Holy Grail, Yulin had nothing to say. Gilgamesh walked up to the city wall. He suddenly remembered something and turned around to ask, what did you want to say just now? Ahem, Yulin coughed hard twice. I was just about to say, don't force me, otherwise I will fight to the end for Uruk with all my strength. Gilgamesh nodded, very satisfied with Yulin's ability to adapt to the situation, and gave a thumbs up in his heart. Very good. Miriam frowned, did you really want to say this just now? I think you seem to be, haha. She didn't feel like it. According to her understanding of Yulin, this guy should be trying to say something harsh. Yulin quickly used all her strength to cover Myrian's big mouth. Yulin holds the Holy Grail in her arms. Take Myrian to an uninhabited corner. The atmosphere in the city was ablaze. The sound of killing shook the sky. One by one chanted slogans. But these have nothing to do with Yulin. He only has the Holy Grail in his eyes, heart, and hands now. The two of them stayed in the corner. Yulin pinched Myrian's cheek hard. Does it hurt? It doesn't hurt. Yulin found that her strength attribute was not worth mentioning in front of Miriam. So he pinched his face. Pain. Not dreaming. Every magician's lifelong pursuit, the legendary Holy Grail that can fulfill all wishes, is really held in his hands at this moment. The Holy Grail appears to be made of solid gold. It is inlaid with crystal clear gemstones, which is extremely luxurious. But the look isn't the point. Holding the Holy Grail, Yulin could feel that he didn't feel like he was holding a cup. He felt like he was holding a lump of substantial magic power. Yulin took a deep breath at the mouth of the cup. The pure magic power flowed through her body, making every pore in Yulin's body relax involuntarily, feeling extremely comfortable. This is the universal wishing machine, the Holy Grail. Before actually getting the Holy Grail, Yulin had many bold ideas. But when the Holy Grail was actually held in her hand, Yulin fell into silence, not knowing what to do. What do we do now? Myrian asked. Unknowingly, Yulin seemed to have become Miriam's think tank and royal chef, asking questions about everything. I'm wondering what this Holy Grail is. Yulin closed her eyes and reorganized the clues from the trial in her thoughts. He thought to himself, can the Holy Grail really make any wish come true like in the legend? If so, then Cecilia doesn't need to be so complicated at all, just make a wish directly to it. After all, since she can use the Holy Grail in her body to summon 7 heroic spirits, it means that she herself also possesses the most basic functions of the Holy Grail. Miriam was stunned, and her thoughts came to her again. She couldn't understand at first, so she quickly entered the brain freeze mode and listened silently without making any comments. So I think this omnipotence is only for ordinary people. Otherwise, Gilgamesh, who has the Holy Grail, can obviously do more things, and he will not just use the Holy Grail to drink wine and summon heroic spirits. That is said that even though he possesses the Holy Grail, he cannot prevent the destruction of Uruk. The golden Holy Grail was spinning rapidly on Yulin's fingertips. Miriam stood aside, listening, her hair trembled, and she tilted her head and asked, "Can you make a wish and let us go out?" "Okay," Yulin sighed, "but, what's the way to get out?" Yulin looked at Miriam's confused expression and frowned, but she didn't say anything more. Instead, she explained, "If even we don't know how to leave this world, how do you think the Holy Grail should be used? Send us away. Just open a door and throw it out. Will we survive after passing through the door? Alive again, let our body leave and the soul stay here. What if you make a wish, let us leave here alive and intact? Will it turn out to be a pig? After all, the pig is still intact." Miriam stared blankly at Yulin talking about the train. She didn't understand. Yulin sighed softly, "I mean, the more complicated and detailed the wish, can it really be realized in accordance with the original intention of the person who made the wish? Furthermore, this kind of move is equivalent to escape from the trial. I have never tried it, so I don't know what the consequences will be." You can try it. But there are certain risks. Yulin really didn't know how to leave this world. He had a vague idea, but wasn't sure. There are risks in wishing for the Holy Grail. Assuming that the wishmaker does not even know the specific implementation method of the wish, then the Holy Grail will most likely use its understanding to fulfill the wishmaker's wish. For example, if Yulin makes a wish, "I want world peace." How to achieve world peace? Although the magic power in the Holy Grail is huge, it must have an upper limit. Yulin feels that the easiest way to create peace is to eliminate all humans. When there are no humans in the world, there will be peace. This idea is extreme, but Yulin feels that if he really makes such a wish for the Holy Grail, it might really cause a disaster. Yulin never thought that the so-called universal wishing machine was really such a convenient and easy-to-use thing. When Yulin hesitated and stared at Miriam, there were commotions inside and outside the city. Yulin's eyes narrowed, and he jumped into the air, stepping high in the sky. After a few seconds, Yulin's eyes changed. A total of 4 cracks appeared in the sky. In every crack, there are aliens peeping. In the city of Uruk, the trumpet sounded loudly, indicating that the enemy was about to attack. In the entire city of Uruk, there were only 623 people who survived in the end and were able to continue fighting. 623. Except for these 623 people, the rest are old, young, women and children. But these old, young, women and children, even under the protection of the city wall, each of them armed with crude weapons, guarded the streets and remained silent. They are mentally prepared to live or die with Uruk. 623 people formed an irregular military formation, standing upright outside the city wall without flinching. Want to leave? Yulin repeatedly speculated that if you use the Holy Grail to make a wish to leave, there is a certain success rate and you can leave here. But now, Yulin hesitated. He actually hesitated. Yulin felt that this was not like him as usual. This is just history, the past. Yulin comforted herself like this. Sudden. A huge hand tore open the crack with force and stretched out from the crack. A huge red eyeball suddenly opened from behind another crack, its cold vertical pupils peering into the world. The huge vertical pupil was like a moon, hanging in the sky, dyeing the night red. Yulin looked at the vertical pupils in shock. It's the evil god. It was the evil god who destroyed the world of Auranos and became Xiao's nightmare at the end of that world. How could it appear here? In another crack, a huge bone claw stretched out. 2 huge will-o'-the-wisps, like eyes, flickering with faint green light, captivating people's attention. Except for these few particularly large ones. Countless monsters, like locusts passing by, emerged from the cracks and covered the sky and the moon. The alien army is coming. Just as Gilgamesh's prophecy said, tonight will be the end of Uruk. The god outside the world launched a general attack on Uruk. Humanity will eventually win. Yulin was watching all this from high in the sky, chewing the last words of Gilgamesh's speech in his mouth. The whole world is in flames of war. The last fire of mankind, Uruk, now seems like a lonely boat in the storm, and it seems that it will be submerged at any time among the monsters in the sky. The earth is devastated. The ocean has no place to stand. Even the sky is no longer clear. Gilgamesh came down from the palace, clad in golden armor. He came to the statue of the goddess. A drop of crystal tears slipped strangely from the corner of the eye of the statue of 11. Why are you crying? This is not like you, 11, my captain. Gilgamesh stretched out his hand, gently wiped away the tears that flowed from the corners of the eyes of the goddess statue, and smiled softly. You said that if you treat human beings as a group, then an individual's life is so insignificant. Yes, the destruction of Uruk is doomed, but we will also leave behind a fire and a glimmer of hope. You are also working hard, right? Gilgamesh laughed, his whole body flashing with golden light. He walked out of the city wall, and with a bang, the city gate closed tightly behind him. He came to the 623 people. Gilgamesh casually took out a large golden sword from the treasure house, stood with the sword in both hands, raised his head, and looked at the strange beasts in the sky with cold eyes. 11. My crybaby captain. Gilgamesh laughed toward the sky with pride. In such a desperate situation, given this overwhelming numerical disparity, Gilgamesh declares victory. Open your eyes. Smile. Be proud. Just be patient. We will not die. We will not lament the injustice of fate. We will fight to the end. In the end, we will become your missing. Our will bring a true dawn to future generations. Humanity will eventually win. Uruk, stay here forever. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Xuexi. Chapter 754. On the city wall. Yilin and Myrian looked at each other in silence as they looked at the 623 Uruk soldiers who took the initiative to step out of the city wall to challenge the aliens, and the wise king wearing golden armor. Yurin holds the Holy Grail. The Holy Grail is in his hands. But at this time, he deeply realized that the Holy Grail was not as omnipotent as the legend said. In the final analysis, the so-called universal wishing machine is nothing more than an amplification prop. Otherwise, Gilgamesh would not have lent the Holy Grail to Yilin so easily in such a desperate scene. In other words, this Holy Grail is of little use to King Gilgamesh. Miriam ate soul food. The whole person was on fire. She rolled up her sleeves and prepared to jump down. But when he jumped into the air, Yilin caught him with his psychic power and caught him in a dumbfounded voice, and retrieved the city wall. Myrian slowly typed a question mark. There's no rush, Yilin shook his head, our battlefield is not here. Saying that, Yilin looked into the distance. In the dark night, 5 black shadows spread out in a straight line, taking advantage of the momentum of the alien attack to quietly walk towards Uruk City. It's black, 5 heroes. This is a war for heroic spirits. Gilgamesh was right. Uruk's future does not mean Yilin's future. If Uruk is destined to be destroyed, Yilin and Myrian should not die here with the destruction of Uruk. Yilin figured out something not long ago. Why did the black heroic spirits commanded by Cecilia choose to retreat at the perfect opportunity after killing their own side? Later Yilin understood. Because there were unexpected surprises on the battlefield. This accident was Hippolyta's death. Hippolyta was killed on the spot because of her crazy pursuit of Gilgamesh. This matter went beyond Cecilia's plan. According to history, Gilgamesh will not take action against black heroes. Yilin pondered, Gilgamesh's power should be reserved for dealing with foreign races. Maybe it's because Hippolyta's provocation was too much. She was worried that other heroic spirits would be affected, so when Hippolyta died, Cecilia recalled the remaining heroic spirits. Why? Miriam didn't understand. The reason is very simple. This is history. Although we have intervened in history, we are destined to be unable to change history. Haven't you discovered that in fact, if the heroic spirits of both sides are eliminated, according to Uruk's original strength, it will eventually evolve into this situation. Our intervention did not bring anything to Uruk. Gilgamesh did not expect us to bring anything to Uruk from the beginning. In his view, we were too weak. Moreover, he said, Uruk's demise is destined. Yilin took a deep breath of the free magic in the air, so, we don't need to pay attention to the war in Uruk, we only need to concentrate on dealing with the remaining 5 heroic spirits. Really, Miriam suddenly realized, but after she calmed down, she rarely used her brain and thought of a question. By the way, Rin, have you noticed that until now, we have not received the main mission? Yilin rolled his eyes. Nonsense, you can notice something, but I haven't noticed it. Forget it, worrying about this now will not help the current situation. Let's find a way to kill the other 5 heroic spirits first. In fact, Yilin had a theory that she didn't want to face seriously as to why they hadn't received the main mission until now. But he didn't mention this speculation to Miriam. He felt that it would be useless to tell her. Miriam nodded. With Yilin in charge of thinking, she felt particularly relieved. In Miriam's eyes, Yilin's layout and insidiousness were comparable to his cooking skills. Yulin took out the Holy Grail and began to prepare. On the side, Myrian said to herself, actually, I decided to fight until the last moment for the city of Uruk. Not long ago, something happened that touched me very much. There was a child who secretly cut off a piece of meat and said he wanted to give it to his fathers. I asked him curiously, who are the fathers? The child said that in the city of Uruk, every child is everyone's child, and every adult will take care of all children as his own. I watched that child with my own eyes take that piece of fragrant meat, and distributed bit by bit to the soldiers who were injured and unable to eat in the city of Uruk. In the city of Uruk, there are no families, no bloodlines, and no relatives. They regard themselves as one ethnic group. They are all Uruk people, and they are all human beings. Having said this, Myrian held the sword in the lake tightly. Why would such a beautiful city be destroyed? Miriam was feeling emotional and expressing her feelings. But as she was talking, she discovered that Yulin started to make moves when the enemy heroic spirits were about to attack here. Yulin held the Holy Grail high, and square magic arrays swung out from his wrist. The Holy Grail floated, Yulin stood in the air, and a huge magic formation was completed with the Holy Grail as the center. Yulin closed his eyes and thought about the magic mark on Cecilia's body. He began to add his own understanding and quickly constructed it. She underestimated me too much. Maybe that woman wouldn't have thought that in such a short period of time, I could imprint the magic mark on her body and see it clearly and accurately. Woman, you shouldn't have stripped naked in front of me. Miriam was slightly startled. She raised her head and looked at Yulin, who was making some movements in mid-air above the city wall, her hair trembling. What are you doing? Yulin smiled slightly. Isn't this obvious? Who stipulated that the Holy Grail war can only have 14 heroic spirits? It seems, there are no rules. Then what? Stand back, I'm going to start shaking people. Yulin closed her eyes. The core of crystal pattern technique is circle, which means cycle. The core of magic is fang, which means rules. Yulin wore a hanging ring on her hand and spread her hands flat. A layer of square circuits appeared on her left wrist, and a layer of round crystal pattern appeared on her right wrist. Finally, Yulin put her hands together and clapped them together. Free method, formation of the Great Holy Grail. In an instant, the Holy Grail suspended in front of Yulin began to tremble violently. A golden magic power visible to the naked eye rushed into the sky. In the sky, a golden matrix of freedom is outlined silently. It's like there are two hands, one hand is drawing forward and the other hand is drawing backward. The positive trajectory of light is in the part that outlines the circle. The reverse light trick is in the outline of the square part. Square and circle, positive and negative, finally converge to the center from two completely different directions. In the huge matrix, icons with distinctive features lit up one after another. Miriam looked at it for a while and saw the clues. She said to Yulin in shock, "You want to use the Holy Grail to summon heroic spirits? If not?" Yulin asked instead without answering. Miriam frowned, "But, you don't have a holy relic on your body, so you can't summon a designated powerful heroic spirit. In the ritual of summoning heroic spirits, if there is a holy relic, the designated heroic spirit that matches the legend of the holy relic can be summoned. If Yulin didn't add the holy relic and chose the random summoning method, she would probably have wasted the magic power of the Holy Grail and summoned weak heroic spirits. This is why Miriam is worried. I don't have the holy relic, but I have a bond." Yulin waved his hand, and an unknown knife on the city wall flew into Yulin's hand. Yulin cut his wrist without hesitation, and bright red arterial blood spurted out from his wrist and poured into the Holy Grail. Soon, the empty Holy Grail was filled with Yulin's blood. The surging magic power in the Holy Grail reacted with Yulin's blood. Yulin closed her eyes and began to recite a spell in mid-air. "Friends with whom I have a deep bond. Follow my memories and longings. Through the barrier of time and space. Answering the call of the Holy Grail. Follow this will and principle. Answer me. Answer me. Answer me. Answer me. Yilin's last words echoed in the sky. The bright red blood formed a violently flowing vortex in the Holy Grail. The center of the vortex seemed to have become a black hole, swallowing up all light. In the sky, the huge square formation, the icon of the sword representing the saber class, suddenly lit up. A beam of light fell from the pattern corresponding to the saber class and landed next to Yilin. The beam of light tore through the space, and a golden sword stretched out from the golden light. Humility, honor, sacrifice, valor, mercy, honesty, justice, spirituality. A cold voice, accompanied by a long sword, came through the air. What emerged from behind the light was a man wearing iron armor. He has golden hair that moves automatically without wind. His handsome features are as cold as iron, but he exudes the charm of an iceberg man that can captivate thousands of young women. On his chest, there is a unique coat of arms. The coat of arms is a pattern of two lions standing proudly back to back. One of the lions holds a sword, and the other lion holds a shield. Two lions. The man's cold eyes became a little more gentle when he saw Yilin. Have I actually become your missing? Yilin smiled slightly, looking at the knight walking out of the light, with an emotion called remembering flashing in his eyes, and smiled. It's not you who has become my missing, it's a curse. This is a curse, Hermelos. It was the curse left by Xiao on me. This curse makes me never forget you. It's Homeros. From the world of Auranos, he fought side by side with Yilin, and at the end, he was annihilated in the void with others, the knight of the country, the iceberg god, and the peerless swordsman of the Twin Lion Kingdom, Homelos. This time, let me be your sword, a brave man. Haven't seen you for a long time. Miriam was already stunned. She had heard of the heroic spirit summoning ceremony. She is also a heroic spirit herself, and the relevant knowledge has already been instilled in them by the heroic spirit seed. But what's going on now? Yilin, he seems to be quite familiar with this new heroic spirit. Isn't it agreed that heroic spirits are historical, legendary, and conceptual figures? Where did he know him from? Moreover, since Hermelos appeared, Myrian subconsciously held down the hilt of the sword. She felt her sword in the lake shaking. Her dull hair was also trembling. The fencing cells all over her body are roaring, roaring from every mitochondria. This is a man who is proficient with a sword. Also a knight? A truly great knight who is worthy of the title of knight and possesses the character of a knight. The Grail summoning ceremony continues. After Saber Hermelos appears. The second golden light fell from the position corresponding to Castor. After the light, the red cloak was rolled into a fist, and a corner was carefully exposed, as if to detect the wind. A middle-aged man with a beard and purple curly hair slapped his cloak back behind him and appeared in front of Yilin. He frowned, looking at everything around him curiously, and finally his eyes met Yilin's. The throne of heroes? That's it? Is it the remembering body? It is said that among the advanced magics, you have learned the extremely difficult remembering magic. I really don't believe it. The Supreme Mage said he didn't believe it, but there was a look of relief in his eyes. Castor Supreme Mage. Coming to the age of gods as a heroic spirit. He is the person who best matches the Castor class in Yilin's memory and thoughts. Yilin is not surprised that he can appear. Farmer, long time no see. The Supreme Mage said. Mage, let's save the old things until after the victory. The two looked at each other and smiled. Bits and pieces of farm memories emerged in the hearts of both of them at the same time. Silence is better than sound at this moment. Myrian looked at the two people who were flirting with each other. She always felt something was wrong. But now, she has no time to express her opinion. After the Supreme Mage appears, the third class icon lights up. Time is running out, and as the magic power in the Holy Grail is consumed, Yilin's longing is materialized by the Holy Grail, turning into heroic spirits and descending into this world. It is the pattern corresponding to Rider and Knight. An old man with a white beard stepped out of the light. The old man wore a pointed high hat and a black robe. The old man carefully arranged his clothes, leaning on his stick, and his kind eyes fell on Yilin. "Young man, you must believe in science. Long time no see, Adeng." "No," Yilin smiled, opening and closing her eyes, holding back the moisture. He felt like crying, but it would be too embarrassing to cry now. Yilin opened her eyes again and said calmly, "Long time no see, my mentor, Albus Percival Wulfric Brian Dumbledore." Adeng stroked his beard with a sad expression. They all sat on the throne of heroes. The Holy Grail, heroic spirits, war, and the corresponding knowledge have been instilled in them. Adeng lamented that it was the great science that allowed the master and apprentice to reunite across time, space, and longing. After Adeng appeared, the fourth pattern flashed frequently, bright and dark. Yilin frowned. With the help of the magic power of the Holy Grail, he achieved the miracle of materializing longing. But when summoning heroic spirits, you must still follow the rules of the Holy Grail. For the 7 professional ranks, you must have corresponding characteristics to successfully match them. For example, Homeros, who is good at playing swordsmanship, no matter how outrageous he is, will never be qualified for the magician class. The fourth pattern flashes with light, indicating that the Holy Grail is beginning to wither. Or maybe, in Yilin's thoughts, there is no other heroic spirit who can match the remaining ranks. Yilin was unwilling to give in. There is still a little bit of magic left in the Holy Grail. If Gilgamesh summoned their 7 weak pseudo-heroic spirits to the Age of Gods, he only spent a third of his magic power. So now, Yilin plans to use up all her magic power and play something big. The Holy Grail is working hard to fulfill Yilin's wishes. Yilin's wish is to miss her. He is trying to complete the miracle that Xiao accomplished casually. Miss Magic, this is the power that only gods can master. But now Yilin has reappeared in the Age of Gods with the help of the power in the Holy Grail. Finally, as Yilin looked forward to it, the pattern represented by the fourth class, the Archer Bow Knight, finally became bright enough, and a ray of light fell. From the light, a woman with dark skin, delicate and shiny skin, sexy figure, and visible flesh, wearing a wide-brimmed skull hat on her head, wearing black leather boots, a machete in her left hand, and a musket in her right hand, majestically emerged from the light. Joan rushed out. Ruth Emily, the uncrowned overlord of the sea, obeys the call. "I ask you, are you my master?" The dark-skinned newcomer put the machete into the scabbard, pulled out the flintlock gun, pulled down the safety catch, pointed the dark muzzle of the gun at Yilin's nose, and asked with a sweet smile. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Xueshi. Chapter 755. Ah, this? Ruth. That Ruth? When Yilin used Elizabeth Lin's waistcoat to cross the sea and blast all the invincible enemies in the sea, that sexy boss lady and first mate Ruth Emily. Whoever touches Ruth will die. Ruth, who is proficient in super massage skills? Yilin stared at Ruth, who was pointing the flintlock at him, and was speechless. He never expected that Ruth would be summoned by the Holy Grail as a missing body. It stands to reason that the heroic spirits summoned by the Holy Grail must have certain characteristics that are suitable for the current class. But Ruth. Archer class, Knight of the Bow. Yilin had no expression on her face, stretched out 2 fingers, and moved the muzzle of Ruth's gun away. Beside, Myrian's protective personality exploded. When she saw Ruth cheating on Yilin, she struck out with her sword. Ruth snorted coldly, then with a flick of a white light, the scimitar blocked Myrian's casual sword. but she was shocked back several steps and stared at Myrian angrily. Master, Adeng, help me hold her down first, I'm not free now. Good farmer. Okay, my student. Faced with the disobedient newcomer, the Supreme Mage and Adeng had a strong enough relationship with Yulin that they took action at the same time to suppress Ruth without saying a word or asking why. Adeng took out a wrench from under his robe, screamed, and knocked on Ruth. The two men fought with wrenches and knives on the city wall. Finally, the Supreme Mage couldn't stand it anymore. He squeezed his hands and a circle appeared at Ruth's feet. Ruth screamed and was teleported away by the Supreme Mage. The Supreme Mage clapped his hands, as if he had done something trivial, and said with a smile, "She will fall freely for 1 minute. During this minute, we will be very pure. By the way, you." The Supreme Master is familiar with Yulin, but not with Adeng. He clearly felt the scholar's temperament in Adeng, but that wrench. The Supreme Mage's eyes fell on Aiden's wrench. Adeng hid the wrench with a calm expression and chuckled. Before the Supreme Mage could ask, he took the initiative to explain, "As a professional engineer, isn't it normal for me to carry a wrench on my body?" Supreme Mage. Yulin had no time to pay attention to the quarrels among her friends. He was still floating in the air. In the Holy Grail, the light dimmed a bit. In the sky, there are 3 class symbols that have not yet been lit up, and there is still no next move. Is there no one else who can adapt to the remaining ranks? Yulin felt a little unwilling. The other party's black heroic spirit is a legendary figure. The strength is terrifying. Even if Yulin used the Holy Grail and longing as a medium to summon the Supreme Mage, Aiden, Ruth, and her Mellows, he always felt that he had little chance of winning. Only when the 7 classes gather together can the best effect of the attack be achieved. In the sky, the alien army is about to launch a general attack. The mighty monster is like a black cloud, pressing down on the entire world. Gilgamesh was alone, leading 623 soldiers to resist this natural disaster for Uruk behind him and for the only remaining humans. The 5 heroic spirits, as well as Cecilia, who was hiding behind the alien legion, were taking advantage of the momentum of the alien monster's attack to advance here. Just when Yulin was struggling, 3 shadows appeared one after another behind Yulin. They are Nai Hungziu, Bai Xiaoi, and Gage Kinmei. The 3 mother spirits and Yulin agreed. They noticed Yulin's inner conflict. At this moment, when they appeared, they were not just shouting and cheering. Rincon. Owner. Officer. The 3 spirits floated in front of Yulin. After calling each other, they looked at each other and stopped talking. They seemed to have something to say. Yulin looked at the 3 mother spirits in surprise. Normally, he would not have too many restrictions on them. Usually, Yulin would not stop them if they wanted to come out for air. But right now, Yulin is in deep trouble and really has no intention of joking with the 3 mother spirits. After a brief look at each other, Gaijiamaimi made up her mind and took a step forward. Rincon, we all feel it. Bai Xiaoi also smiled. Master, maybe this is the meaning of us coming to this era with you. Nai Hong's sleeves were full and she bowed, her blood-red wedding dress fluttering in the wind. Official, it's calling us. You said the Holy Grail is calling you. The 3 mother spirits each said one sentence, and Yulin finally understood what they meant. Yes. Gaijiamaimi was dressed very appropriately and innocently today. It was a girl's uniform in a serious school. She looked at Yulin with a smile, and her eyes flashed with a rare look. Lin Jun, this is the meaning of our spirit existence. You saved us from hell, and we established a relationship with you that is better than blood, a more indestructible bond, and this bond between us will turn into your strength through this cup. Yulin shook his head. You have already become my strength. Today's Bai Xiaoi seems a little different from usual. She closed her eyes, feeling the faint call from the Holy Grail, and stretched out a finger. Master, do you believe in destiny? Yulin was speechless and didn't understand what Bai Xiaoai was talking about at this time. He shook his head, I don't believe it. Bai Xiaoai and Nai Hongxiu looked at each other. When their eyes fell on Yulin again, there was only unspeakable tenderness. Bai Xiaoai smiled and said, Master, I still remember when you 5 ghost hunters came to Giwu Mountain. That place imprisoned us for a long time. We acted like ghosts in that mountain, like walking corpses, like, they eat meat and are thirsty for blood. But you came and you rescued us. Master, have you ever thought about why it was you and not others? Not only me, but also my mother and Xiaomei. Gaijiamime curled her lips at the side, but did not refute. Rincon, you know, from the moment you brought Xiaomei out of Kanzaki City, Xiaomei's life is yours, and you will have no regrets in this life. Bai Xiaoai acted as a lobbyist, looked up at the 3 professional ranks in the sky, and said slowly in a confused tone, why do we feel the call for the remaining 3 positions? Xiaoai, Mr. Yi feels that everything is destined. Your encounter with us has destined us to become your strength today, here and now. The remaining 3 classes of the Holy Grail are actually summoning 3 spirits. The remaining 3 classes are Knight of the Spear, Assassin, and Berserker. Nai Hongxiu's eyelids drooped, his face was cold, but his tone was as determined as iron. You are not ordinary heroic spirits. If something unexpected happens, I don't know. Gaijiamime interrupted Yiren, Rincon, let us go. Bai Xiaoai and Nai Hongxiu held hands and looked at each other in silence. Yulin hesitated for a few seconds. After a few seconds, Yulin took a deep breath. He made a decision. Good. The 3 mother spirits, Nai Hongxiu, Bai Xiaoai, and Gaijiamime, were afraid that Yulin would regret it, so they did not say goodbye, feel reluctant, or hesitate. They turned into red, white, and black lights and entered the Holy Grail at the same time. In the Holy Grail, 3 colors formed a violent turbulent vortex in the cup. Homeros, Aten, and the Supreme Mage stared at the battlefield and the sky with solemn eyes, silently waiting for what would happen next. Soon. In the Great Holy Grail formation, the remaining 3 classes light up at the same time. 3 light beams of different colors fell from the sky. In the red light beam, Nai Hongxiu was dressed in red, her white hair was as white as snow, her bare feet touched the ground and floated out. In the white light beam, Bai Xiaoai was wearing a black ghost hunter robe, with a sharp word kill embroidered on the back. At her waist, there was a long knife with a white scabbard. The sheath was also white, and the knife was not yet ready. Take it out of the sheath, and the force will come silently. In the black light beam, Gaijiamime stepped onto the city wall wearing an ordinary student's short skirt. Her eyes had no whites, pure black eyes, with an ominous light. She regained her body and was squeezing her tender flesh curiously, with a happy expression. It wasn't until seconds later that her eyes returned to normal. When the last 3 heroic spirits were in place, the Great Holy Grail formation in the sky disappeared without a trace. In the Holy Grail, there is no more magic power fluctuation. Yulin's summoning of heroic spirits this time consumed the remaining magic power of the Holy Grail, squeezing it until not a drop was left. Yulin felt waves of burning sensation on her arms. Different styles of command spells appeared on Yulin's arms one after another. His current identity is not only the heroic spirit summoned by Gilgamesh, but also the master of 7 heroic spirits. Good. Although Gilgamesh was well prepared in front of the city of Uruk, Yulin's high-profile movements on the city wall could not be hidden from anyone's eyes. After giving a faint thumbs up, he waved his hand, and the Holy Grail flew out of Yulin's hand and returned to Gilgamesh's hand. For Gilgamesh, the important thing about this Holy Grail is not the magic power accumulated by the Holy Grail for thousands of years, but the collection value of the Holy Grail itself. So far, the Holy Grail in Gilgamesh's hand truly fulfilled its destiny and became an ordinary cup without any magic power stored. Apart from being used to drink ale, It has no other use. Gilgamesh laughed. The cup was filled with crystal clear ale. He raised his head and drank the ale in one gulp. Circles of ripples appeared from behind Gilgamesh. Countless precious phantoms turned into cannonballs and were fired at the alien legions. Boom boom boom. The dazzling white explosion light illuminates the night sky, making the sky as bright as day. Thousands of monster corpses, under Gilgamesh's sudden attack, were like rain, staining the sky with blood. Rotten God, be afraid, be shocked, be trembled. In the next few thousand years, you will all remember a name. Gilgamesh floated up, his golden eyes like two stars. We are 11. The war of ethnic groups has begun. It was raining blood in the sky. It seems like the tears of the world and the sky crying. Kindness. Yes, Gil. My king. Inkiju smiled and returned to the original form of Lock of the Sky. With Gilgamesh as the center, a chain pierced out, instantly penetrating countless monsters and taking away their lives. And those 623 soldiers, holding their weapons high and singing war songs, rushed toward death fearlessly. They can be defeated and die, but they must not give up. Behind them is Uruk. In Urukri, there are their children, and the last fire of mankind. On the city wall, the heroic spirits summoned by Yulin, including the three mother spirits who had regained their bodies, and Ruth, who had just finished free fall and fell to the ground, were also shocked by the scene in front of them that could be called the doomsday battle that they could not leave. Voice. Fortunately for the Supreme Mage, he seems to have seen many big scenes. But he knew the seriousness of the situation, and his expression was not very good. In the sky. The Foreign Legion covers the sky and the moon. Thousands of monsters, like strong winds, roared towards Uruk. Gilgamesh was almost alone in the sky, controlling countless noble phantasms and killing alien monsters. And on the city wall. In the shortest possible time, Yulin told the new heroes the information about the 5 surviving heroic spirits. Do you control the power of thunder? He is somewhat similar to my fat otaku friend who plays with hammers and has cheese flowing in his veins. I will deal with him after hearing the information. The Supreme Mage's eyes flashed and he pointed at the elegant figure in the distance. The figure selected the opponent. Zhao Zilong is mine. This time, I will not fail again. Miriam raised her fighting spirit high and raised the sword in the lake above her head, declaring victory in advance. Hermelos looked at Miriam, and he always felt that her image was somewhat similar to his former Excalibur. But thinking about the relationship between his own captain and this captain, Hermelos smiled and said nothing. I feel the aura of the Emperor. Hermelos looked at the figure sitting in the chariot in the distance, and said slowly, leave it to me. Gage Mimi squinted her eyes and looked into the distance. My wife, Yuno, was at the rear of the battlefield and did not forget to play with her mobile phone. Gaejiamime was very angry. You are still playing with your mobile phone at this time? That's too much. Leave that little girl to Xiaomei. Several people selected their opponents as quickly as possible. At this time, after being beaten with a wrench and falling into free fall, Ruth became much more honest. She stared straight at Yulin, who was surrounded by heroic spirits and chatting. She always felt that this posture looked familiar. Yulin? Yi, Ren. Could it be? Ruth thought of this and tentatively asked, do you want a massage from me? My techniques are very skilled. Yulin nodded without thinking, that's fine. Your massage technique can add buffs to everyone. It's an excellent auxiliary ability. When Ruth heard this, she still didn't understand. She jumped up on the spot, clamped her legs together, hung her whole body on Yulin's waist, and hugged Yulin's neck tightly. The fierce women across the sea would never be afraid of saying that men and women are not intimate. She slapped Yulin's face and took a sip. My dear captain. It is indeed you. Stare. Everyone, including Miriam, looked at Yilin and Ruth with different expressions. At first, Yilin pretended not to know each other. Tisk. This familiarity is a bit outrageous. Under Myrian's eyes full of murderous intent, Yilin tried her best to maintain her posture as a master, forcefully spread Ruth's legs apart, and threw her off her waist. After learning Yilin's true identity, although Ruth had countless questions in her mind, it was not a good time to reminisce about the past. She obediently patted and pinched everyone on the back. Those who were patted by Ruth's little hands looked at her hands in surprise, feeling that their bodies were much lighter, and a strange power surged out of their bodies. Yilin quickly distributed the food with the buff effect. While Yilin was distributing food, Homeros and Aiden walked towards Yilin. Hands outstretched. The iceberg god Hermelos said with a sullen face. Although Yilin was confused, she still did it. Aiden and Homeros patted Yilin's left and right hands respectively. This action is a bit like cheering each other on the eve of a big battle. Xiao He, as a serious knight of the country, forget about this habit. Aden, you are just an engineer, why are you joining in the fun? Yilin couldn't laugh or cry. Aden blinked, my disciple, this is a weak light of hope. Homelos didn't explain much, turned around and walked away with a sullen face. Yilin didn't think too much, clapped her hands, shouted it's time to fight, and started to do pre-war mobilization. The plan is very simple. Separate the opponent's 5 heroic spirits. Xiao He will hold the first emperor, Saber, Miriam will deal with Zhao Zilong, Xiao Mei will deal with Black's mad level, and Mage, you will kill the King of Thunder and Lightning. I have other arrangements. Everyone, surround Paladin Roland. Try to fight quickly and rush to other battlefields once the opponent is defeated. Everyone nodded to show their understanding. After taking care of all the heroic spirits, we turned around and helped Gilgamesh clean up the monsters. That's the one with the shining gold in the sky. Everyone nodded again. Simple and clear plan. Challenge, fight, clear monsters and distribute them reasonably. At last, Yilin stood up and imitated Gilgamesh's operation, returning all the command seals to themselves. Let's go. Yilin, Miriam, Aiden, Supreme Mage, Ruth, Homeros, Nai Hongxiu, Bai Xiaoi, Gaijiamaimi, a total of 9 people, quickly jumped down from the tower. Yilin and the Supreme Mage floated cross-legged behind, moving forward in unison. Yilin's eyes fell on the heroic spirit opposite. Go and subvert this battlefield.